Vegas when they face New Mexico. Our pregame coverage will begin at 8 o'clock, and John will have the tip after 9. San Diego FC is on the road tomorrow to take on FC Dallas. Our coverage will begin at 5 o'clock on your home for San Diego FC, San Diego Sports 760. Choosing the right home service company isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about trusting who's in your home. That's why homeowners count on Anderson for friendly professional service that keeps everything running right. Visit AndersonPHA.com.
All right, John Schaefer and Brent Sperry, San Diego Sports 760 on this Friday afternoon. Have some caffeine. Drink a cup of coffee. Grab yourself a Celsius. I don't know if I can encourage that. I think I can, Brent. We got a long night ahead of ourselves. Aztecs moving on last night, as many of you know, taking down Colorado State in the quarterfinals, and now 2 wins away from another trip to the NCAA tournament. Now, doesn't get easier, as we said last night. They got to go through New Mexico tonight. It's kind of fitting, and let's start there. We have a really good show lined up. I'm in my hotel room here in Vegas, and then we've got pregame and the game, and then postgame reaction, of course, tonight. Tip off at 9 p.m., which means it'll probably be a little after 9 p.m. because it's the second of 2 games tonight from the Mountain West semifinals. So we got a really good show lined up, and we're going to be with you for the next 4 hours. We're talking Aztecs. John Sadak will be on the call for CBS Sports here tonight, and he's a longtime friend. He's been on. He's the voice of the Reds. He does a lot of college basketball and college football. He's going to join us coming up at 2:30. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, will join us at 4. There is developing news regarding Joe Musgrove's health, which is not encouraging, and will be impactful potentially on the Padres to start 2026. And Kevin will join us at 4 p.m. And then friend of the show, Rocco Miller, who's our resident bracketologist. I think this will be his 3rd visit this season. He will join us coming up at 4:30 from bracketeer.org. This is a fitting conclusion for San Diego State in the Mountain West. It'll wrap up this weekend, whether it's today, hopefully not, for Aztec fans, or tomorrow with potentially another Mountain West tournament championship. But this is the end, right? The final 24, 48 hours for San Diego State men's basketball, specifically in the Mountain West Conference. And it's kind of fitting it would end against New Mexico, isn't it? Long-time rivals. Probably the best rivalry in the history of this conference is San Diego State and New Mexico in men's basketball, I think across all sports. And I think that's the case. If somebody disagrees with me, text us, 70470, start it with the word team. But, I mean, these teams have gone up against each other so many times. I think they've met over 100 times now, all time. And the series has gone back and forth. And New Mexico's had some unbelievably impressive wins in the Mountain West tournament specifically, including in a championship game a couple of years ago when they had Jalen House and Mashburn, that really talented team 2 years ago that went to the NCAA tournament. And yeah, Aztecs have had some classic wins in this series. And in the regular season, for example, this year, these two teams went back and forth at each other. The Aztecs won a close game at Viejas, and then New Mexico won a barn burner of a game, just a classic game, just a couple of weeks ago at the Pit. And then there's all these other ties between these two programs because New Mexico's head coach spent 20 years in San Diego at UCSD, Eric Olin, and some of their top players are San Diegans, and Luke Hopt, who played at Point Loma for 4 years, and Jake Hall, who started Carlsbad High School. So, like, you don't need any more storylines. Like, this thing writes itself. Winner remains alive potentially for the NCAA tournament, even an outside shot at an at-large bid. And the loser, potentially their season is over. That's what's on the line here today at the Thomas & Mack in Las Vegas. The atmosphere is going to be incredible. I thought last night was a really good atmosphere. I think tonight will easily surpass it. New Mexico has as many fans as anyone in this league at this event year in and year out. San Diego State brings a ton of fans, probably thousands of fans. And I think the building's going to be packed tonight. Might not be sold out because it seats 15,000 people, but you're going to have 10, 11, 12,000 people in the building rooting for San Diego State or New Mexico in the second game of this doubleheader, because the winner then will play for a Mountain West championship on Saturday afternoon. So it's everything that you would want, I would say, if you are a college basketball fan or an Aztec fan. And narratives will write themselves after this. You know, if San Diego State is fortunate enough to win this game, then all of a sudden they're on the precipice of getting back to an NCAA tournament. If they're unable to win this game, then potentially the offseason begins for San Diego State. I mean, you're going to wait through Selection Sunday. You never know. Although for San Diego State, you would think to remain alive from an at-large possibility, they would need to win a game like this. So you can't have higher stakes. And fittingly, that would play out in Las Vegas, Nevada, where, of course, there is no city with higher stakes basically in the U.S. And again, against the backdrop of conference realignment, where New Mexico is staying in the Mountain West and San Diego State is heading for the new Pac-12, it's like, would you want it any other way? Would you want to be playing Grand Canyon right now? I mean, there's no real rivalry there. Games have been played like 6 or 7 times. Would you want to be playing, Boise State? Sure, that's a good series as well, but it's not San Diego State and New Mexico. And, there's still a scenario here where, and you can't get ahead of yourself, but, San Diego State wins this game, and then potentially they're playing a Utah State team that has also been their nemesis here in recent years and is also heading to the Pac-12. And those two teams split the regular season series here this year as well. But I think, if you're an Aztec fan, how could you not be encouraged based on what you saw last night? Again, one game doesn't make two, but you got to win the first to win the title, right? Fact. So last night, I thought they did everything you wanted them to do. They did, other than the things that you have no explanation for. What I mean by that is nobody can control going 22 of 42 from the free throw line. That's not how they drew it up. That wasn't the plan going in. To the point where earlier today I'm at shoot around, they're working on free throws, which obviously they're doing every single day, but I think they put even more of an emphasis on it today based on last night. But you go 22 of 42 from the free throw line and win? How's it even possible in a tournament game? You go 1 of 11 from 3 and win? How's that even possible? Your opponent hit 13 threes. So how did they do it? They did it with defense and rebounding, which is their calling card. It's a little bit like what we say with the Padres, and we'll get into the Padres coming up in about 10 minutes with the Kevin Acee reporting on Joe Musgrove, but it's a little bit like what they say about the Padres. It's like you can break it down until you're blue in the face with the Padres, and we can get into anything you want to get into. At the end of the day, with the San Diego Padres since 2019, as Manny goes, the team goes. How many times have we said that? As Manny goes, the team goes with the San Diego Padres. It's overly simplistic. It's not, it doesn't make any sense, but it's just easy to say that if Manny's on a hot streak, the Padres are probably playing well. And if he's not playing well, there's a chance that the Padres are scuffling. And same thing with San Diego State. It's like, you're not necessarily looking for someone to burst out and score 26 points in a game. You're not necessarily looking for them to shoot 40% from 3. Again, all of it is a luxury. You're going to take San Diego State getting a 26-point effort from Reese Dixon Waters or Miles Bird or whomever else, BJ Davis. You're going to take, the night where you go 9 of 20 from 3 and shoot 45%. But the greatest predictor of San Diego State winning or losing is what they do on the defensive side of the ball and what they do on the glass. End of sentence. If San Diego State holds opponents under 40%, they win over 90% of the time. It's higher than that under Brian Dutcher. If San Diego State out-rebounds an opponent, they win at a high clip. And last night, that's what they did. Colorado State shot 33%, and Colorado State was out-rebounded by 12. The Aztecs had a 14-0 advantage in second chance points at one point, and they were able to overcome going 22 of 42 from the free throw line. They were able to overcome Colorado State making 13 threes. And make no mistake, this thing was not easy. This got dicey briefly in the second half when San Diego State could just not put Colorado State away. I think you play this game 10 times, San Diego State's going to win it by 15 or more, 8 or 9 of them. But they left all those points out there. I mean, if they made 30 of their 42 free throws, they would have won the game by, 9 + 8, 17. That's by going 30 of 42. That's actually below their season average, which is 75%. They've been a good free throw shooting team. They weren't last night. It was their lowest shooting percentage from the free throw line all season. But I would say this about missing free throws. And there was a lot of commentary last night on our text line, which, by the way, is open. I would love to hear from you here today as I'm in Vegas. So 70470, you can start it with the word team, or maybe you're driving to Vegas this afternoon, listening on the iHeartRadio app. You can call us 877-767-4760, and you still got time to hop in your car right now and get to Vegas. No joke. The game doesn't tip till after 9. So you might be listening to my voice and say, hey, let me hop in the car. Why not? You only live once, right? How about a weekend in Vegas? And let's hop in the car and do that. We can get there by an hour before tip, if not earlier than that. But I don't even know where I was. I kind of lost my train of thought on that. But where was I, Brian? I forget where I was. Oh, I know what I was going to say. With the free throw shooting, it's like everyone's like, oh my gosh, if they keep shooting free throws like that, they're not going to win games. Well, yeah, obviously. You're not trying to shoot 50% from the free throw line every game. This is the deal with free throw shooting. If it costs you a game, it's the end of the world, and I agree. If you win and you shoot they shot last night from the free throw line. I was about to curse there. If you shoot like they shot last night from the free throw line, you win. Who cares? I mean, it's of absolutely no relevance because it's a completely unpredictable part of the game. It just is. I mean, you can't go into the game and be like, where San Diego State's going to be really good tonight. I bet they're good because New Mexico is going to miss free throws. Like, you can't say that heading into a game. And I doubt New Mexico today in their scouting report in the team hotel, it has circled San Diego State at the line and been like, you know what? Maybe San Diego State will miss 50% of their free throws, and that's how we'll move on. That'll be our game plan. Let's just hope they miss 50% of their free throws, and that'll be our game plan. So it's one of those things that's completely unpredictable. There's certain things in sports. It's like, how many penalties are going to be called against you in a football game? Yeah, there's some teams that commit more penalties than others, but like, if the New England Patriots commit 11 penalties in a Super Bowl and win it, do you really care? As opposed to if they commit 4 penalties in a Super Bowl and lose it? And I made that point last night. It's like, who cares? If the Aztecs went 42 of 42 from the line and lost, would you be celebrating here today? Nobody would care at all if that happened. And if they went 10 of 40 from the line and won a national championship, again, it's irrelevant. So I thought overall it is what you were looking for as an Aztec fan. And as I said when I signed off last night, which wasn't even that long ago, what I said was it only goes uphill from here. It only gets more challenging. I think Colorado State's a very good team. The team the Aztecs beat last night, they had won 9 of 10 overall. But now you're taking on a New Mexico team that has similar aspirations in terms of playing its way into the field. Like, it boils down to this, and we'll talk more about it with Rocco Miller, bracketologist, coming up in a couple of hours. But it boils down to this. There's only one team in the Mountain West with a strong at-large case to reach the NCAA tournament. That's Utah State, based on their body of work this year. The other teams are either trying to, quote-unquote, steal a bid, whether that's San Diego State or New Mexico or Utah State's opponent in their semifinal, Nevada, or they're trying to strengthen their resume. Now, Nevada doesn't have a resume, but San Diego State and New Mexico do. They're likely on the outside looking in. This goes a long way in terms of putting yourself in a position if you don't win tomorrow. Like, this is, the term in bracketology would be like, this is like the most bubblicious game probably of the day. Like, this has bubble written all over it, what it means for New Mexico, what it means for San Diego State. In the whole country today, in all these tournaments, there's maybe one other game that is similar to this. There's a game, I think, between Oklahoma and Arkansas that is, but it's not the same because one of those teams is already in the field in Arkansas. The other is trying to play their way in Oklahoma. With San Diego State and New Mexico, it is a true bubble matchup where both of the teams need it to potentially work themselves onto the right side of the bubble, and the loser is likely out. So you can't have higher stakes than this. You can't. I don't care if this game was played between Duke and North Carolina here tonight in Vegas. If the stakes were similar, you couldn't have higher stakes between Duke and North Carolina. So for a moment, the center of the college basketball universe is on Las Vegas tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific, which is midnight Eastern. And I think the junkies that watch this stuff day in and day out, they'll be watching tonight when San Diego State is playing New Mexico. And, of course, for San Diegans and for Lobo fans, people will be watching, of course, tonight as for one final time in the Mountain West, San Diego State faces New Mexico. One final time for the end of time for Mountain West history. This will be it for San Diego State and New Mexico, with everything on the line for both of these teams. So 9 o'clock is the start time. Join us on San Diego Sports 760. Turn your TV down, turn the audio up. We'll have the radio call for you with pregame coverage just after 8 p.m. probably, because tip-off will be after 9 p.m. And again, I'll have the call for you coming up tonight from the Thomas and Mack here in Sin City at 9 p.m. All right, we will spend a plenty amount of time on the Aztecs here today, as well as the Padres. We'll also give away a 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. Is Joe Musgrove out to start 2026? The latest from Kevin Acee, who will join us live today at 4 p.m., plus John Sadak. He'll be on the TV call for the Aztecs and the Lobos tonight on CBS Sports Network. He'll join us coming up in 15 minutes at 2:30. This is San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760, John Schaefer and Brent Sperry. John Sadak will be on the call tonight for CBS Sports Network. The Mountain West semifinal doubleheader, Utah State, Nevada, followed by San Diego State and New Mexico. Just massive games here in the middle of March. John Sadak, longtime friend, will join us coming up in about 10 minutes or so. Also, do want to remind you, you've got that 4-pack of tickets to give away to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. So be listening for your chance to win those tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. The new Elephant Valley is now open at San Diego Zoo Safari Park. You can get up close and roam alongside the world's largest land animals. We have chances for you to win a family 4-pack of tickets to see Elephant Valley. The elephants aren't the only ones who will never forget Elephant Valley at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. All right, let's turn our attention to the Padres, and there is concern, and this is always the concern in spring, that you're going to deal with an injury that is of significance. Now, we know that Joe Musgrove has been the heart and soul, by and large, or one of the pieces, one of the core pieces of the Padres. I mean, one of the true leaders since the day he arrived here, and everyone knows the backstory, obviously, out of San Diego, the first no-hitter in franchise history, and clutch moments in big games like a Game 3 against the New York Mets, for example, in the postseason in that, best-of-3 wild-card round at Citi Field. So, he's a year removed. He's actually well over a year removed from Tommy John. Last pitch to the major leagues in 2024. And here's the thing. With what the Padres have done in terms of salary allocation, like they're going to need Joe Musgrove and Michael King and Nick Pivetta. Simple as that. Like they have allocated a lot of resources elsewhere. And yeah, they've backfilled at the back of the rotation. They've got some flyers in Walker Buehler and German Marquez. And they've got Randy Vasquez, and people are optimistic on him in general in the rotation. But like, make no mistake, you're going to need the three that I mentioned off the top. The Musgrove, Pivetta, King thing, like, is a prerequisite for the Padres to get where they want to go. So that's why you kind of drop everything when you read what Kevin Acee wrote within the last 24 hours, which is in an article, a notebook about the Padres. Of course, he covers them every single day in Peoria and will join us live coming up later on here this afternoon. But he said yesterday that every day that passes with nothing new makes it more likely Joe Musgrove likely will not begin the season on the Padres roster. And that is just so concerning. And I'm not casting blame anywhere. Not about Joe Musgrove. I understand the dynamics of Tommy John, having worked in professional baseball for the first half of my career. Some guys are able to respond to it quicker than others. Some it takes over 2 years until you feel fully healthy. Even others are never fully healthy coming off Tommy John, although that's become, less and less rare with the passage of time. But Musgrove had a Cactus League outing, and at the latest reporting from Kevin, just hasn't felt like himself since then, which, by the way, is commonplace for pitchers coming back from this type of elbow injury. But now you just kind of wait on the response of his body and his elbow to see what the next steps are. But you're talking about a season that gets underway in less than 2 weeks. They're playing baseball games in San Diego against the Tigers in 13 days. And as a result, the season's not going to wait for Joe Musgrove. And the Padres aren't going to be able to wait for Joe Musgrove. They're going to work, obviously, with his timeline and timetable. But, I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, well, Joe's going to be back to being Joe in 2026. And he may at some point. You've heard me say this if you've been listening to the show this offseason, which is, I think that the key factor to consider with Musgrove is, will he be consistent, which is probably the hardest thing for any pitcher to do coming off Tommy John. It's not to doubt that he will have good outings once he is healthy and back in the rotation. He will. But will he have a good outing followed by a bad outing, a longer outing followed by a shorter outing? Will he be able to piecemeal together a successful 30-start season for the Padres in the major leagues? And with what Kevin is writing and with what Joe Musgrove is experiencing, honestly, it's very hard to envision that right now, that he's going to make 30-plus starts and he's going to give you 150-plus innings. I mean, that seems so incredibly wishful, and I hope that I'm wrong, and I always bet on Musgrove. He somehow finds ways, and he's overcome a lot, whether it's injury or adversity, and, you trust him to be, on that mound every fifth or sixth day at some point, hopefully consistently in 2026, but some of it is also outside of his control. How does the body feel? How do you react to the surgery that you had 18 months ago? I mean, you haven't pitched. You have not pitched competitively in nearly 2 years. And what's the return on that, or what's the value on that? How do you overcome that? How do you quantify that? That's the word I'm looking for. How do you quantify what that really means, the impact it has on Joe Musgrove and this team and his prognosis for 2026? So it'll be fascinating, not necessarily in a good way, but it's going to be fascinating to watch play out, because here's the thing that I know with Joe Musgrove right now before the season even starts. There are going to be highs and lows, and probably extreme ones. And there's going to be adversity, and they may skip a start here or there, or he may not start the regular season on the opening day roster, and he may not throw 150 innings. And his numbers might not look as good as his career numbers. But hopefully there comes a time at some point this spring or summer where Joe Musgrove looks completely like Joe Musgrove. And I'm not talking about on the mound for one inning or one outing. I'm talking about consistently for 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive starts. That's what you're hoping for as a Padres fan at some point in 2026. The good news is you don't need to see that. You don't need to see that level of consistency March 26th through April 24th. You don't necessarily need to see it May 24th through June 19th. You're going to need to see it in the second half of the year. I think to feel good about Joe Musgrove, to feel good about the Padres, to just have a good feel in general about the state of the rotation, because I don't even know where you turn. Like if the Musgrove Tommy John response is not a good one, and now you're down to King Pivetta and you're counting on Vasquez, and now you're adding someone to the back of your rotation behind, again, not just Vasquez and not just Walker Buehler, but now you're adding another pitcher. Like all of a sudden it gets thin quick. This was always the issue with the Padres, that they didn't have the starting pitching depth that they would potentially need if they were dealing with injuries. And that remains the issue with the Padres heading into 2026. So we'll talk to Kevin Acee more about this story that he's been writing on this week, and he will join us live at 4 p.m. John Sadak, though, on the other side, longtime voice of the Cincinnati Reds. Actually, not a longtime voice of the Cincinnati Reds, but he's been doing it for 3 or 4 years, but a longtime college basketball and football broadcaster. He'll be on the call tonight on CBS Sports Network for San Diego State and New Mexico in the Mountain West semifinal here in Las Vegas, and he will join us live on the other side. This is San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Anderson Plumbing, Heating, and Air. San Diego FC is on the road tomorrow night to take on FC Dallas. Our coverage will begin at 5 o'clock right here on your home for San Diego FC. And tonight, the Aztecs continue their Mountain West Conference tournament against New Mexico. Our pregame coverage will begin a little after 8 o'clock, and John will have the tip after 9. Choosing the right home service company isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about trusting who's in your home. That's our homeowners count on Anderson for friendly professional service that keeps everything running right. Visit AndersonPHA.com.
All right, tonight, huge showdowns in the Mountain West. Kind of fitting that it is these matchups. You've got San Diego State and New Mexico coming up in the second game of the doubleheader, Nevada, as well with Utah State. And again, the winners move on to the Mountain West Championship game tomorrow afternoon here in Las Vegas. Great to reconnect with Jon Sadak, who is a long-time friend. I mean, we're talking 20-plus years. We've worked together as broadcasters and colleagues and friends now for over 2 decades. And our Aztec fans will have the fortune of watching the broadcast on CBS Sports Network. Jon Sadak will be on the call tonight for both of these doubleheader games. He's with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. So, first of all, Jon, it's great to see you this weekend here in Las Vegas. And secondly, you can't ask for a better matchup than this nightcap tonight, right? San Diego State, New Mexico, with essentially everything on the line from an NCAA tournament and Mountain West perspective for both of these teams.
You're exactly right. And it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me, going back to the Carolina League days. And yes, now here talking about the bubble, right? I mean, this is the ultimate bubble game. The truth is, this is an elimination game. The winner is guaranteed nothing, but the loser is done. I just don't see, with how crowded the field is and with how many bid fees have emerged with so many one seeds going down in the mid-major landscape. You know, I actually think something I'll bring up on the broadcast tonight, Ryan Dutcher probably put it better than any coach that I've heard frame it this way. It's the first time I've heard it framed this way. And you're probably already familiar with it. I'm sure he shared it with you, that he said it's the power conferences and then everyone else is essentially one group. You know, all the mid-majors are one giant conference fighting for X number of spots. And one of those spots won't be determined by tonight, but one of the teams in the running for it will be eliminated by tonight. And I think it speaks to the greatest 2 powers in the league, arguably the greatest rivalry in the league. These are the 2 teams that have combined for the most championships, and it's a fitting, likely end, you know, barring some kind of other unforeseen circumstance in scheduling in the future, to a storied rivalry.
Yeah, it's like you just can't write it better than this. I know you and I were not necessarily bracketologists, but again, we cover college basketball. Would you envision the winner of this game, if they didn't win tomorrow, to make the field?
It's a great question. I mean, right now, our bracketologists with CBS Sports have both among those first 4 out. In fact, in that second and third ranked spot out of those 4 teams. Right now, I think you have a very compelling case. And I think also one of the other compelling cases, and each year to some extent is a vacuum, right? Or that's part of the idea. But I do think there is heft and weight to some carryover of the pedigree of a league and what it has meant. And San Diego State's one of those flagships with the Mountain West, you know, going to the title game only a handful of years ago. You know, this league has put 4 teams in the tournament for 4 straight years. 2 years ago, a half dozen teams made the tournament. So the concept of, if it were Utah State to advance from the other semifinal, and if Utah State were to fall, that would be necessary to make it a multi-bid league. That does seem kind of odd, right? Because I don't see that giant drop-off. In fact, if anything, Utah State's record is indicative of how competitive this league has gotten. You know, they were the regular season champs with 5 losses, the most losses ever by a Mountain West regular season champion. That shows the depth that this league has right now.
Yeah, it's great perspective. Jon Sadak will be on the call tonight. Again, the Mountain West semifinals getting underway at 6:30. San Diego State, New Mexico, a little after 9 from the Thomas and Mack Center. I go back to, it wasn't long ago. We're sitting at the Pit in New Mexico, that blaring building, an incredible game that the Lobos were able to pull out. There was a controversial call late in that game as well. They went to replay, and there was a lot that went into that game. Hopped the San Diego and hit that big 3 on the wing as well. when you think about a game like this, I thought that game at the Pit and really the season series between these two teams has come down to rebounding. New Mexico has an outstanding rebounder inside of Tomislav Buljan. San Diego State at their best has been good on the glass, but they're, when they haven't been at their best, they've been, out rebounded, and second chance points have piled up against them. Does this simply come down to rebounding tonight for the Aztecs and the Lobos?
I think that's one of the critical keys, right? It's a critical part of it. The possessions that you can create, because that can just erase a lot of other types of mistakes or diminish many other advantages. I think it's a crucial part. Buljan is just a beast. He is just so different. And I think the analogy that I've heard other analysts and coaches bring up, I did not come up with the concept in any way, but that he probably fits the best. He has a gravitational impact on play, the spacing, what it allows for teams to do. So eroding that, I think, changes the dynamic of New Mexico's offense significantly. If he still possesses it, then it liberates so much. And I think that's where the jaggedness or lack thereof, bluntly, I don't think New Mexico wants to deal with an up and down type game. They would prefer it's more half court so that his size and that offensive rebound impact can be so significant. Where San Diego State, I'm sure, the win, Miles Bird, was the critical factor. His tips, the amount of times he touches the ball on defense, particularly on help and jumping passing lanes, ignited his offense. His words after that game, when he was asked about putting in a team high 21, the first thing he brought up was his steals, his blocks, and his tips. And he said at the time, I've been trying to tell your local media that bleeds right into my offense. My offense comes from that defensive side, igniting it. And I think you're exactly right, because that's where rebounding is probably the central constant for both sides, that if one team wins it, particularly in convincing fashion, it's just going to domino into everything else that respective team does well.
Yeah, that's well said, and absolutely could be the difference tonight for one of these teams between winning and losing. It's not every day. What I find amazing about San Diego State, New Mexico this year, John, and John Sadak is with us. He'll be on the call tonight on CBS Sports Network. What I find amazing is San Diego does not produce a ton of Division I men's basketball players. There have been some great players out of San Diego County, but it's not rich in talent like maybe San Diego County area football would be, for example. But now you look at this New Mexico team where Eric Olin spent 20 years at UCSD, took him from Division II to Division I. He then brings Luke Hopt with him, who played at a non-D1 at Point Loma and is playing his final college year for the Lobos. Jake Hull is a true freshman out of Carlsbad High School, playing for New Mexico as well. Isn't this game just littered with San Diego storylines, which is just entirely unique when it comes to men's college basketball?
Very much so. I was having that exact conversation with my partner, Dan Dickow, when we were coming back from the shoot-arounds today, and asked him his general impressions of San Diego high school basketball. And he confirmed pretty much what you're saying, that's his perspective of that of national recruiters is that you can dismiss at times some of the gaudy numbers that come out because it's hard to judge it based upon level of competition. And, Jake Hall was set to be bound to UCSD with Eric, before he wound up changing jobs. And then with that, that school allegiance changed for Hall as well. But clearly he has demonstrated against high level competition. He is an elite shooter. He is one of the best shooters in the country. One of the top scoring freshmen, period. And the 3-point shot is a critical part of what New Mexico does. They deny the 3-point shot incredibly well. They take a ton of threes and they shoot it at a very good clip. Not quite great, but they have a great single shooter that shoulders that load significantly. And it's a giant part of the interconnectedness, particularly in college basketball, of that style is a big deal. That's something that New Mexico shoot came up as just a concept of playing against San Diego State. That complementary basketball is so necessary. And you have these, San Diegans that I'm sure San Diego State has been a long-time power, that there's some kind of connectivity to that, right? It means something. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, anywhere in the world, when you're in something that's related to competition, and that competition now has on the other side something that's tied to home, something that's tied to your family, your background, whether that's something you feel close to or the opposite. No matter what, the sport is so fueled by emotion. It's a huge part of the story in this game.
It really is. And by the way, they had another San Diegan that was supposed to be a huge part of their team. He's just been out. Chris Howell, who played at Torrey Pines High School, but he's been out and played last year for UC San Diego. John, before you go, I know you got a busy one with 2 games coming up. Just give us the 30,000-foot view of Utah State and Nevada, what's playing out in the background. The Cincinnati job comes open. Jared Calhoun has been a successful 2-year head coach at Utah State. They're in the midst of this incredible year. How do you see this first semifinal shaping up?
Similar to what the second one is, the home team took each game the first time, and defense ultimately won the day in each of those games. It was a decided run for Nevada at the close. Utah State also missed some shots that it would normally make during the Wolfpack win that happened in Reno, and Utah State forced turnovers from a Nevada team that doesn't give it away. Fewest turnovers in the Mountain West. I think Corey Camper Jr.'s ability to cut off ball, the motion style going back to the Bobby Knight Indiana days against that tactile shuffling zone that has a lot of deception from Utah State. In similar fashion to San Diego State, Utah State can hum offensively like nobody in the Mountain West, but it starts at the defensive end. It's those live ball turnovers that result in transition and run that are a huge part of it. And I think the defensive side and the jagged nature of it. I mean, we saw a foul fest yesterday throughout the day, particularly in the San Diego State game and also in the Nevada game, where they set a single game Mountain West tournament record for free throws made. So I think that other element could have an even bigger impact in that game. How is it whistled? Nevada doesn't take many threes. They probably have to be plus at the line to beat Utah State, but that's part of what they do.
John, love your perspective and the insight. Looking forward to seeing you tonight out here in Vegas. And for our listeners, if you're watching on television, John Sadak on the call for this massive doubleheader in the Mountain West, late night here in Sin City. Appreciate it, my friend, and I'll see you later on tonight at the Thomas and Mack.
You got it. Thank you, John.
All right, great stuff from Jon Sadak. All right, on the other side, we can react to that. Plus, Team USA returning to the field in the WBC later on today. We will react to that and get you ready for it. Kevin Acee will join us at 4 p.m. We've got our bracketologist, our resident bracketologist on the show. Rocco Miller, bracketeer.org, will join us coming up at 4:30. This is San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, back with you, San Diego Sports 760 from Las Vegas, Nevada, where San Diego State will get New Mexico coming up tonight at 9. We'll have pregame coverage for you right here on 760, beginning a little after 8 p.m. I'll be on the call for you a little after 9 p.m. tonight, San Diego State and New Mexico. Oh, you just know everything on the line stakes tonight in Sin City. So we'll have that for you. A lot more reaction coming up. Kevin Acee will join us at 4 p.m. Rocco Miller, resident bracketologist, bracketeer.org. You can catch him on the field of 68. He will join us coming up at 4:30. Now, also tonight, high stakes between Team USA and Team Canada. This is the WBC quarterfinal matchup, a rematch of the Olympic hockey gold medal match, although they won't be playing hockey. They'll be playing baseball. You like that, Brett? And obviously we know how this all played out, which is the U.S. got lucky to even get here. They lost to Italy, and then it was out of their hands. They got a break because of what Italy did to Mexico, and now they move on. It's like, you got your mulligan. You've gotten your second life. You have to capitalize on this right now. It's as simple as that. This will still be seen as woefully disappointing if the U.S. loses tonight to Canada. Shoot, I think it's woefully disappointing if they don't win this tournament. Truthfully, being played on home soil, and I mean, you just look at, you got Logan Webb on the mound, and you got this lineup just loaded from the Bobby Witts to the Aaron Judges to the Bryce Harpers and, the Kyle Schwarbers. It goes on and on and on. And the U.S. looked really good for a couple of days, and then they ran into someone that was their equal on that day. I mean, they sat guys for whatever reason. We talked about that, obviously, obsessively. And now it's, again, the U.S. and Canada. And again, when you think about it, it's interesting because I never really thought about baseball from an international perspective until the WBC launched like 20 years ago. And I didn't really overly think that. I never questioned growing up, like, is this, does America have the best baseball in the world, right? That wasn't necessarily discussed. If you're in your 40s, you weren't really thinking about that in the 80s and the 90s, would be my guess. Like, do Americans play the best form of baseball? Now, of course, the world has caught up, which I think is a good thing overall for the sport. I think the popularity of the sport, the globalization of the sport is a very good thing. I mean, look no further than the NBA. The NBA, its growth since Dream Team, the way it's played everywhere, specifically in Europe. Some of the biggest stars in the NBA right now and in the last 25 years have been European or non-American players, Canadian-born players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for example, or, Victor Wembanyama out of France. The list goes on and on and on, obviously. And that's been great for basketball and, in turn, the NBA. I think the same can be said for Major League Baseball. The growth of the game worldwide has been beneficial for, A, the sport of baseball, and B, Major League Baseball. But I just don't really see it from like a nationalistic perspective. I don't look at baseball as the type of sport where I'm like, I want to dominate the world by claiming that the U.S. has the best national baseball team. I don't really see it as an Olympic sport like I see basketball, because, again, basketball has used professional athletes since the 1990s, or hockey, for example, that oftentimes has used professional athletes. When I think about baseball and Olympic baseball, they're amateurs by and large, historically, that have played in Olympic baseball. So the WBC has kind of provided a new perspective on it. I think two things can be true. Will I critique and blame the U.S. and call it a significant disappointment if they don't win this game today, or a semifinal, or even a final? Yeah, probably. But also, will I lose a lot of sleep over it and pretend like, the balance of power has shifted worldwide with the sport of baseball? No, I'm not going to do that at all. And I don't think the WBC, personally, for me, holds a candle to watching Major League Baseball games, and specifically just watching Padres games day in and day out. So, listen, I mean, I'm curious. You'd like to think that the U.S., with their rotation and with Logan Webb and with his lineup, can win going away. But it is a baseball game, and anything can happen, obviously, in a win-or-go-home baseball game, just like in a college basketball game tonight between San Diego State and New Mexico. And, they've got a second lease on life, Brent, and we'll see if they can capitalize on it tonight in the quarterfinal round.
Yeah, DeRosa particularly has a second lease on life because, they need a big win. And they showed in the Italy game that they can't just show up and win by 10 runs, because I think that's what they thought was going to happen in that Italy game, that they were just going to walk in there and they were just going to be so much better that, they could just throw anybody out there and we're still going to win by 7 or 8 runs. And they found out that's not the case. So hopefully they can at least make the finals. I don't think they have to win it necessarily to make up for it, but yeah, if they get bounced like right away, then yeah, it's going to be disappointing.
I think that is a good point about, like, you're right. Like, if you make a finals and you lose in a win or go home, like, championship type game in baseball, where we understand, like, there's so many variables at play, it's hard to be like, what a massive disappointment. You were one of the final two left standing when there were like 20 something teams at the start of this in the event. But again, I look at it like this: it's on home soil, and you've been in a position historically where you haven't always capitalized on these opportunities. How many times has the U.S. even won this? Once. We did that exercise previously, and I want to say, yeah. So all time, Japan has 3. The U.S. won it in 2017, and the Dominican won it in 2013. Those are your 5 champions. 3 Japanese teams: 2006, 2009, 2023. A Dominican team in 2013, an American team in 2017, and then the event was not played during COVID. So this is only the 6th tournament ever in the history of this event in the WBC. So it's still growing and emerging. You probably need like another 25 years of data before you can. I mean, and this will probably still change a lot, the way they constitute this tournament moving forward as well. It's definitely grown. Like, make no mistake. I mean, I think it's gotten the attention of sports fans, specifically baseball fans. I think it is a decent time of year because, again, who's paying attention to the Cactus League or the Grapefruit League in the middle of March? Like, you pay attention for a couple of days when games start, and then you turn your attention back a couple of days before opening day. So, it's probably the right time to do it. And I think ultimately you have a chance to have some really phenomenal baseball played. Like, I'd love to see, and I don't know what the bracket feeds into, but I'd love to see along the way Dominican against the U.S., or I'd love to see Japan against the Dominican, or Japan against the U.S., right? Like, I think those are intriguing. Right now, by the way, in Vegas, I think the shortest odds still belong to the U.S. at plus 140. The Dominican is plus 230. Japan is plus 450. And Venezuela is plus 900. Those are the 4 nations that have the shortest odds to win the WBC in 2026. But again, the team that is favored to win it is the U.S. That is the team that is favored. And again, they're coming off that loss to Italy. We know about the Tariq Skubal saga, but they do have Logan Webb, and they've got Paul Skeens, and they've got a path, obviously, beginning tonight against Canada in the quarterfinal round. All right, tons to get to. We're here until 6 p.m. Kevin Acee is going to join us coming up at 4 p.m. The latest on a possible sale of the Padres. He has some recent reporting on that from earlier today. When can we expect the sale of the Padres to be finalized? Plus a health update on Joe Musgrove. In addition, Rocco Miller, our resident bracketologist with Selection Sunday, just 48 hours away. I think it's literally 48 hours away. Rocco Miller, bracketeer.org. He will join us live coming up at 4:30. His thoughts on the importance of tonight for both San Diego State and New Mexico. And we're also giving away a 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And we'll do that coming up here this afternoon as well. Jon Schaefer with you from Las Vegas, Nevada, getting you ready for San Diego State and New Mexico tonight at 9 p.m. And this is San Diego Sports 760.
This report is sponsored by the Taking a Walk podcast. The Aztecs are in Vegas to continue the Mountain West Conference tournament tonight when they face New Mexico. Our pregame coverage will begin a little after 8 o'clock, and John will have the tip after 9. Tomorrow night, San Diego FC is on the road to take on FC Dallas. Our coverage will begin at 5 o'clock right here on your home for San Diego FC, San Diego Sports 760. Step into the world of music with Buzz Knight's Taking a Walk podcast. Each week, Buzz brings you up in close conversations with new and legendary musicians for one of the best music interview podcasts. Listen to Taking a Walk on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, hour 2 here on San Diego Sports 760. John Schaefer with you from Vegas. Brent Sperry back at our San Diego Sports 760 studios. Aztec basketball tonight in the Mountain West semifinals. It's going to be raucous inside the Thomas and Mack tonight with all those Aztec and Lobo fans for the Mountain West semifinals. And you can hear it at 9 p.m. with our pregame coverage beginning at 8 p.m. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, who's been with us for years, obviously on 760. He will rejoin us today at 4. The latest on Joe Musgrove's health. Doesn't sound overly encouraging. Also doesn't sound like it's something that, hopefully costs him significant time, but they're just dealing with how his elbow responds, coming off a Cactus League appearance and coming off Tommy John surgery. But Kevin Acee will have the latest on that coming up at 4 p.m. And then our bracketologist, Rocco Miller, will join us at 4:30. Also today, we do have a 4-pack of tickets to give away to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, and we will do that here coming up this afternoon. Now, Brent and I both caught the same article earlier today, written by Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan writes, he does these here's a 50,000 word breakdown on the season. Here's a 75,000 word primer on the trade deadline, or here's 25,000 words in the upcoming MLB draft. And he wrote predictions and fantasy tips for whatever reason and more on every single team. And I don't know how many words this is, but it's a ton of words. But what was interesting is he kind of wrote nothing on the San Diego Padres. I think we both felt the same way. His big, it wouldn't surprise
nothing
me.
Good, anyways.
Yeah, he didn't say anything of substance. His big, it wouldn't surprise me if the Padres sold for a record price. Who cares? That's irrelevant to their season. I mean, it matters. It matters. Their ownership matters, and the sale price and all that. Of course, it matters drastically. But in terms of whether they go 1972 or 81 and 81, I don't think their record sale price has anything to do with that. What he said the season hinges on is where we've taken the conversation today, just organically, because it's the topic of the week. Joe Musgrove. And he writes, these are his words, it's a yikes scenario. Again, if Joe Musgrove isn't Joe Musgrove. And he says kind of what we've been saying all offseason. Maybe he's been listening, which is they've put a lot of payroll elsewhere with their roster that they need contributions out of King and Pivetta and Musgrove. And if they don't get it, it can be complicated. He goes on to say, A.J. Preller's compiled depth arms, Herman Marquez, J.P. Sears, Griffin Canning, but Musgrove represents San Diego's best hope at a frontline type to pair with Pivetta and King. And he writes, since his last start more than a week ago, Musgrove's arm has not responded as he's hoped. It could be a blip on the radar. It could also be something that causes cascading problems in an already fragile starting pitching group. There is your season in a nutshell. There it is. There it is in a nutshell. If you can keep a rotation healthy, you have a chance to win and win at a high clip. And if you don't, you could be running into problems before you even think you have a problem, which is basically right now. Because right now it seems overly wishful to say that Joe Musgrove is starting the year in the rotation for the Padres. I mean, he hasn't pitched in over a week and has made one Cactus League appearance. How on earth could he start the year in the major leagues? Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't be there 2 weeks after the season starts or less and make valuable contributions throughout the course of the season. I'm not saying that at all. But there's a little bit of a domino effect as well. Because, now you don't have Musgrove and then you backfill with someone else and all of a sudden your rotation's a lot weaker than you thought it was going to be. I mean, you take 1 out of 5 and that's 20%, and you take 1 out of the front of a rotation and its true impact is obviously even more than 80%. And I'm looking still. I mean, every day I go to Fangraphs And every day it tells me the Padres are going 79 and 83. I'm printing this thing out if I'm the team, as we've talked about. Like, I'm putting this thing on the bulletin board and saying Fangraphs has no clue what they're talking about, because in one column they have the Padres last year 90 and 72, right? 90 and 72, really good run differential, really good team ERA. And then this year, it projects the Padres right now to go 79 and 83 and finish with a negative run differential from where they were last year. I mean, they were plus 81 last year. It's now projecting the Padres to be 16 runs short in terms of, run differential here in 2026. And you know why? Why is that? Because it's runs allowed per game. It's not runs scored. In fact, the Padres are projected to score more this year. This is fascinating to me. Didn't have a good offense, so I guess that part's not overly fascinating. Didn't have a lot of slug, but Fangraphs projects the Padres to score more runs per game. Not a quarter of a run, but more runs per game, right? So over the course of a season, even a tenth of a run is somewhere like 20 more runs in a season. And more than that could be, 30, 40, 50. So let's say they project the Padres to score 30 more runs, for example, this upcoming season. That's not drastic, but it's something. Here's the issue. It also projects the Padres to go from having allowed 3.8 runs per game to 4.5. I mean, that is massive. That is so significant. So why is that? I think it starts with your rotation, not your bullpen. Your bullpen projects to be one of the better ones in the sport. Doesn't mean it will, but it projects to be one of the better ones in the sport. Your defense might not be as good. That's a possibility. You've added some pieces that might play in some of the corners. I think you give up a little bit of defense for offense. And again, the projections state that their offense could be improved, but their defense and pitching could take a step back. But so the name of the game in terms of what these, analytical sites are saying prior to the season is that the Padres pitching is not going to be as good as it was last year. And I think that's possible. I mean, you're replacing a lot. Dylan Cease, now, did he have the year? No, but he ate a lot of innings. Robert Torres, is he replaceable? Yes, when you have Mason Miller. But again, he was a key piece in the back of your bullpen, obviously. So, that's the season in a nutshell, essentially, for the San Diego Padres, for me. I mean, and that really is. It's, can your rotation hold up? And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that that's the difference for any team to get to the postseason or not, how your rotation fares. But the difference with the Padres, as opposed to other teams, is that the Padres knew heading into their offseason they were dealing with a situation that was precarious. Michael King under 100 innings, dealing with a neck back injury. Now they re-signed him, so they know more about his health than I do. So I'm sure they're optimistic in a full bounce back. But again, he still has to do it, and he didn't throw a lot of innings last year. Pivetta, I'm all in on Pivetta based on last year. He doesn't have to prove anything to me. He stays healthy. He's an effective frontline starter. But this is where it starts getting dicey because Joe Musgrove hadn't pitched in a year. Everyone understands the challenges of coming back from Tommy John, and they didn't fully address their starting pitching needs. But John, they added Michael King. Well, they already had Michael King. So, yes, I give them credit for bringing him back, and they did invest in that player significantly, and that could prove to be their linchpin to their season. I mean, if they make it to the postseason by a game or two, and I doubt they'll have crazy margin. I don't think they're making it to the postseason by 9 games, for example. But if they make it by 2, you might look back on Michael King and what he's able to do in 2026. That could be a distinct possibility. But if they miss out on the postseason, you might circle Joe Musgrove. But not specifically Musgrove, because I'm not putting it on Joe. It's really the replacements, so to speak, like what you did in the offseason to address your rotation. And it was addressed to some extent, but not to a full extent. And I think most people agree with that. Yes, you brought in players with potential and high upside. Griffin Cannon coming off injury. Herman Marquez coming off injury and a down year, but he was bouncing back from Tommy John. Walker Buehler coming off a down year. He's been dealing with injuries in the second half of his career. There's others in there. You have JP Sears, you have Matt Waldron. So there's others in there, but like it's very, I keep using the words wishful or optimistic or hopeful. It's wishful for me that you could just take a JP Sears and replace Joe Musgrove. That's not reasonable. You could take a Matt Waldron and replace a Joe Musgrove. Again, that's not very reasonable. So a lot of it is on the shoulders of the front of this rotation, and some of it because that's the job of the front of a rotation, and some of it because the Padres just haven't invested in the rest of the rotation to the same amount that they've invested in their bullpen and in their lineup and in guys like Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish over the years and Michael King, et cetera. So, we've used these analogies about like linchpins or dominoes. Is like Musgrove's a big one. Like he is, again, I think if Joe Musgrove can somehow give you the year that you've seen before from him, that puts you really in a good position. And if he doesn't do that, I don't know what you do. I have no idea. If Joe Musgrove is ineffective and doesn't have a true impact, like he's had throughout the course of his Padres career, you just overcome that. How? Just because someone else steps up, because Ruben Niebla is just a pitching whisperer. So it doesn't matter. If Musgrove doesn't throw well, then Vasquez will throw well. And if Vasquez doesn't throw well, then Sears will throw well. I don't know if it's as easy as that at the major league level. Like professional baseball, thin margins, trying to win games by 1 or 2 runs, trying to navigate your way to 87, 88, 89 wins. I don't think it's just as simple as, well, you got a really good pitching coach. And if Joe Musgrove misses time or, if Walker Buehler doesn't look like Walker Buehler, don't worry about it. We've got it all figured out. We got a really deep bullpen. That's probably too overly simplistic for me, but I'll let it play out. I don't think it's 5-alarm fire. I don't think the season's over before it starts. That's not the point I'm making at all. It really isn't. I'm trying to be cautious with Joe Musgrove and then also realistic with the Padres. And I think that's the way to approach it. The cautiousness with Musgrove is because we all understand that coming off an injury like the one he's coming off doesn't mean you just get back on the rubber and everything is perfect. Also doesn't mean that the wheels have fallen off and he's not capable of being the pitcher that he's been before. And, you just have to take it all into account. You got to take everything into account. Look at all their offseason moves, look at the additions, look at the subtractions, and see what it adds up to. Last year they did finagle their way to 90 wins. That seems maybe high based on everything that we know right now about the 2026 team. But, they don't necessarily have to hit 90. They could win a game or two less than that and still reach the postseason. But again, they're going to need to be somewhere in that mid to upper 80s to have a legitimate shot of reaching the postseason. And we'll see if they can get there or not in 2026. And again, a lot of it hinges on Joe Musgrove, but it really hinges on the organization. Organization did put itself in this spot where beyond Joe and King and Pivetta, you don't have the depth necessary potentially to, navigate 162 games. I think that's at least a fair opinion on it. And of course we can change it as the season gets underway in 13 days. So again, a lot going on with the Padres. Kevin Acee has the latest on a possible sale of the team. We'll share some of that with you coming up on the other side. In addition, we've got this 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park that we're going to give away. And we can do that actually in this 3 o'clock hour. So we'll give away those zoo passes coming up later this hour. The latest on a potential sale of the Padres. What is the timeline? How many groups are still in with an offer on the Padres? Is it still 5? Is it more or less? Kevin Acee's latest reporting on that, and he will join us live coming up at 4 p.m. right here on San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. As we get ready for the Mountain West semifinals coming up later on tonight at 9 p.m., San Diego State and New Mexico. And again, we're with you here until 6. Good show lined up over the next couple of hours. 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. Those will be given away. We've got Kevin Acee joining us at 4 p.m. And Rocco Miller, resident bracketologist, bracketeer.org, will join us coming up at 4:30. I would imagine it's similar here as it is in San Diego, Brent. What is it? Is it 80, 90? How hot is it in San Diego today?
Like it feels like 88, just like yesterday.
Okay, so it's warm. And it's warm here as well, so kind of feels like summer outside.
It's one of those days where if you don't have to be in the sun, it's okay. Like if you're in the shade, if you're outside, or if like you're inside and you got a fan on you, as long as you're not like in direct sunlight, it's not that bad. But if you have to go be in the sun, it's awful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this morning I didn't really. So I think I got up and I talked to my wife and son. Like, they were getting up in like the 7 a.m. hour. So I talked to them in like 7 something, right? And then I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, I was just thinking about my day. I'm like, I could do breakfast or this, that, or the other, and this is what time shoot around is. And I'm like, you know what? I think it's really nice. I just opened up the blinds, and I knew yesterday it was 80 here, and I was assuming it would be 80 here again. It was cooler than that at 7:30 right in the morning. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go I'm off the strip, but I'm not far from the strip. It's obviously walkable. So I'm like, I'm just gonna walk to the strip, and maybe I'll go for an hour-long walk. This was at like 7:30 in the morning, maybe 7:40. Dude, I walked for 3 hours. It was a little aggressive. I was out of my room from 7:40. I knew that their shoot around San Diego State was at like 11 a.m. I'm like, well, I'll be back by 9 at the latest. I got back at 10:40, and then I raced upstairs, took a quick shower because I was out for 3.5 hours, like in the 80-degree heat, and then got to shoot around, and then grabbed a quick bite to eat, and then set up for the show, and now getting ready for it's just been one thing after the next. I didn't need to go on a 3-hour walk. And you haven't been to Vegas, have you, Brent?
I drove through it when I moved here.
Yeah. I mean, Vegas is an interesting place, and I'm putting that mildly / kindly. I love visiting Las Vegas. I think it's fun to, be here for a couple of days, have something to do, show, event, game, whatever it is. I mean, there's something for everyone, obviously, as we all know. But walking around for 3+ hours, you literally see everything. Like I saw, it's like 7 in the morning. I don't even know what I was expecting, but whether it was off the strip or on the strip, and I went into some casinos. I'm like, what time? People were like drinking at bars. I mean, of course, it's Las Vegas. I'm like, it's 8 in the morning. What is happening? Like, where am I? What time is it? But anyway,
I haven't gone home yet.
Exactly. Probably not. Honestly, people were probably still out from last night. But the reason I bring all this up is like, I'm kind of losing track a little bit of the time, which happens all the time in Las Vegas, specifically in the casinos. There's clocks nowhere. They don't want you to know whether it's 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. They just want to keep you obviously in the casino, having a good time, spending your money. And I'm kind of losing track of time here today. And the reason I say it is like this game time is so bizarre. We know in the West, me and Brent know as well as anyone. I mean, you're playing a lot of late games, whether it's football or basketball, a lot of West Coast, 7:30 starts, occasionally 8, 8:10, 8:15. Very rarely are you playing at 9 o'clock Pacific. This game in Albuquerque, for example, for Lobo fans, is at 10 o'clock Mountain. But this game won't tip off at 9. We all know how college basketball works. I mean, hopefully it tips off, in the 9:10-ish range, but it could be later than that. Not 9 or 10, like 9:10. It could be later than that. Maybe it could be a few minutes earlier than that. But like this is a really late night. And then the key in this event over the years is that the team that wins the first doubleheader on semifinal Friday has a pretty big advantage because they can get back to the hotel and rest because on Saturday, the championship game is at 3 p.m. So for the winner of the late game, which is what San Diego State is in tonight against New Mexico, you're getting back to your hotel. I mean, let's forecast a 9:10 start, which is probably aggressively positive, right? A little early. Let's say you start at 9:10 and you end at 11:20. That's a 2-hour, 10-minute game, pretty reasonable. By the time the team is done with media and then, showering, changing, and getting on the bus, I mean, aggressively, that's 40 minutes. It's probably more than 40 minutes, but let's just say it's 40 minutes. So now you're on the bus at midnight, heading to your hotel. That's a best case scenario. It's probably more like between 12:15 and 12:45 that you're on the bus heading to your hotel. Hotel's not far, but let's say 10 minutes. and you're not even back in your hotel until the 12s. And, maybe you're still kind of wired from playing, and you're then playing another game for all the marbles to go to the NCAA tournament 14 hours later. I think that is terrible. And that is a huge knock at the Mountain West Conference. Now, it's their TV partners that determine that. But to play the 9 p.m. Pacific game and then have the winner turn around and play at 3 p.m. the next day for a right to go to the NCAA tournament, I mean, how do you even prepare? How do you get your body healthy? You don't even have time. There's no time for recovery. You can get, what do you get? 5 hours sleep, best case if you're a player. It's not like you just put your head on the pillow and you're out at 1 a.m. Maybe best case you're out at 2 a.m. And then all of a sudden the next day is here, and you've got prep, and you've got recovery, and you've got to eat, and you got to go. And you're going to get to the arena, I don't know, 1:15 in the afternoon for a 3 o'clock game the next day. So it's a very tight turnaround, and it's usually advantage team playing in the first semifinal. And that's Utah State and Nevada tonight. But listen, you just want to get there. So if you're San Diego State, you can't worry about that. I can worry about it. It speaks to this just bizarre day. I was thinking all day. I was like on my walk. I'm like, wait, I still have a 4-hour radio show. And then wait, we still have to go to the Thomas and Mack. And like this game is listed at ESPN.com as an 11:59 p.m. Eastern start because truthfully, it's starting tomorrow on the East Coast. And in theory, on the East Coast, the winner of this game is playing 2 games in one day. If you know what I mean, they're playing midnight Eastern, and then they're playing 6 p.m. Eastern later that day. So you're essentially playing 2 games in one day, the winner of tonight's semifinal between San Diego State and New Mexico. Listen, as long as the Aztecs win, it's all good. As long as San Diego State finds a way to win here today, it's all good. All right, we've got those San Diego Zoo Safari Park tickets to give away. We'll do that this hour. How about that? We'll do that this hour. 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, giving them away here in the 3 o'clock hour. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, will join the show coming up at 4. Rocco Miller, bracketologist, 2 days out from Selection Sunday at 4:30. This is San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast. San Diego FC is on the road tomorrow to take on FC Dallas. Our coverage with Darren and Adrian will begin at 5 o'clock right here on your home for San Diego FC, San Diego Sports 760. The Aztecs are in Vegas still to continue their Mountain West Conference tournament tonight when they take on New Mexico. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will begin a little after 8, and then John will have the tip, hopefully not too far after 9 o'clock. On our American Stories podcast, they'll tell the tale of family affairs star Brian Keith's service and sacrifice. You won't want to miss the next episode of Our American Stories.
All right, San Diego Sports 760. Again, we've got that 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park that we're giving away, and we're doing it this hour. I'm in Vegas. Brent is in San Diego, getting ready for, again, Aztec basketball, as Brent just told you about tonight here at 9 p.m. Kevin Acee will join us at 4 p.m. The latest on Joe Musgrove's health, an update on the timeline for the Padres switching ownership, potentially as early as, who knows? Kevin will have the latest on that. And he also caught up with Xander Bogaerts. Will it be different this time around for Xander Bogaerts? Will it be different this time around for Xander Bogaerts? Which is kind of just a fascinating question. I mean, we've heard everything under the sun with Xander, and I'm curious to hear what Kevin has to say about his conversation with Xander, because I don't know, I feel like we've heard every excuse in the book for Xander. It's not like this player's been an abject failure. It's just, look at his numbers in Boston, look at his numbers in San Diego. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand he was way better in Boston. Why? Well, there's two primary reasons. He was younger. He was better, so maybe 3 reasons. He was younger and better, and ballpark factors, because it's easier to hit in the AL East with Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium and Rogers Center and Camden Yards than it is to hit in a division with, well, just the Dodgers in it, but then, Oracle, obviously, Coors Field is the one gimme, but you're playing half your games in San Diego as opposed to half your games at Fenway Park. But I mean, just look at his 3 years, which is a big sample size. Like, Xander in 3 years in San Diego has played over 400 games, and he has a 738 OPS, which again, for I think an average regular in the major leagues is serviceable, but it's not phenomenal, and it's not overly impactful. Even for a middle infielder, it's fine, but it's not more than that, and truthfully, it's not less than that unless you're making $280 million. And that's when people say, well, how are these your numbers when you make this kind of money? In Boston, he had an 814 OPS, so nearly 100 points higher. In Boston, his batting average in his career was 20 points higher, and his slugging percentage was 51 points higher. So it's just a factual statement, obviously, that Xander Bogaerts in San Diego is not Xander Bogaerts in Boston. And now the question is, well, what are you going to do about it? And every spring, it's always hope springs eternal. And, Xander has a renewed approach, and he's feeling good, and he's going to be a great teammate, which he already is. Like, this is not a knock on him as a person at all. I have enjoyed hearing from Xander Bogaerts by and large since the day he was introduced to the San Diego media. Since that day, I've enjoyed hearing from Xander Bogaerts. I really have. So I do think he's a good leader, but you didn't spend that kind of money for him to be a good leader. I do think he's good in the clubhouse, but you didn't spend that kind of money for him to be good in the clubhouse. You spent it for him to produce on field. That's the only reason why. No other reason. All those other things are nice, but you don't call the 1-800 number for the food dehydrator when they show it on your TV because of the free gifts they throw in. You want the food dehydrator. You don't want the plastic knives, I don't think, right? Like when you're trying to lose the 50 pounds and they're going to give you the DVDs. I don't think they do that anymore. Like you don't want the extra DVD. You want the first DVD to lose the 50 pounds. So like you didn't acquire Xander because he's good in the clubhouse. Same thing about Eric Hosmer. That's you can't explain away $144 million because he's good in the clubhouse. Just like you didn't spend $340 million on Tatis so he could go jump over the right field wall and bring a ball back from being a home run. I mean, that's nice, but there's no statues for defense in modern baseball. So therein lies the problem with Xander Bogaerts. It's not personal. None of it is personal. I think he has a lot of good traits of a really good player, hence his multiple World Series rings, where he was key components on those Boston teams. So he's just got to do more here than he's done. And he has not been a good playoff performer in his career, and that includes winning a couple of World Series. I mean, he's had moments, certainly, but his time in San Diego in the postseason has been awful. Let's see. He's hit .222 with a .624 OPS in San Diego in the postseason. So obviously he was a lot better in Boston than that. So, I don't know what else to say other than it's put up or shut up is what it is. I know Kevin has talked to us about this before. It's like, I'm not suggesting they move on from Xander Bogaerts. I mean, you can't eat that kind of money, obviously, and you're still relatively early in an 11-year deal. This is year 4, so you're not eating 8 years of a contract. You're not eating 7 in all likelihood at the end of this year, but would you consider 6 or 5 or 4? At some point, yeah, probably. There'll come a day where the player's not productive and the player is holding you back from accomplishing your goals. And you don't what do they say? Don't let a bad deal become another bad deal. It's like you don't try to get out from underneath a bad trade by trading away that player and attaching a prospect to him. So, it already was a bad deal. So don't make it worse by playing him. If that's what you have to do, you think for the next 7 years. No, you don't have to play this player for 7 years. Now, right now, you probably do because you're only 3 years into this deal. But there'll be a time, and maybe that's a conversation for Kevin later on today at 4 p.m. There'll be a time where you have a more extensive conversation about Xander Bogaerts' future. I don't think we're there. I don't want to be there. But is that worth having potentially at the end of 2026 if it's once again a very forgettable year? Maybe it is. I mean, that might also be a question for the next ownership group that's going to spend $3 billion on this franchise. Will they have an appetite to eat? I mean, what's that going to be? $175 million potentially of a $280 million deal. He's only 3/11ths of the way through the deal. That's not 30%. He still owed 70% of $280 million. That means he's still owed 200 of the 280, $200 million. And this is why it's all tied together. It's like when your back hurts, it's probably because of the way you're walking. It's not your back, it's your knees, it's your feet, it's all tied together. Why is the Padres rotation thin? Because they spent a lot of money on Xander Bogaerts. Again, is that overly simplified? Yes, but it's all tied together. You have one bank account. You don't have 26 bank accounts. If you got $100 in the bank and you spend 50 of it on 5 guys and you got 50 left for the other 21, then you're going to have to cut corners. And that's potentially the issue that they're going to run into this year. Now, you could get bailed out by Xander Bogaerts living up to his contract. You could get bailed out by players like Randy Vasquez in the back of your rotation or Walker Buehler exceeding expectations. That's all possible. But I don't know if that's the expectation either. So they've got themselves in a little bit of a conundrum, and they have work to do when it comes to their payroll moving forward, although they're handcuffed in that regard because, again, the money with Manny is tied up for a long time. The money with Toddy is tied up for a long time. The money with Bogaerts and Merrill all tied up for a long time to varying degrees in terms of the overall spend on those players. But, man, they have invested so heavily in their lineup, and I credit them for it. I mean, it's been a fascinating time to be covering the Padres or a fan of the Padres, obviously, with these massive deals, one after the next, from Manny to Toddy to Bogaerts to Merrill. Big pitching deals. I mean, Darvish and Musgrove both getting, $100 million deals and so on and so forth. So, some of them have worked out better than others. I'd much prefer this than, hey, let's just develop from within and never spend on free agency like the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Baltimore Orioles. But it still has left them somewhat exposed, so to speak, because I think, again, you look at a pie and where you would want to allocate your resources, and this pie is probably tilted off kilter because how they've spent on certain players and then how they've left open the exposure elsewhere with their roster. And that's part of professional sports. You spend in one area and you hope to make up for it in another area. And right now it just feels like their payroll is probably a little out of whack. And we'll see if they can get it back under control. But that's not going to be easy with all these long-term contracts. Again, Bogaerts under contract for 8 more years. Like, ask yourself this if you're driving down the road right now. Where are you going to be in 8 years? Who knows? But that's how long they're tied to Xander Bogaerts. They're still tied to Toddy for, I have no idea how many more years. It's more than 8. I don't know if it's 9 or 10. It's somewhere in that neighborhood. Again, where are you going to be in 10 years? You got kids? Imagine your kids in 10 years. I mean, they're out of the house, potentially, maybe working, maybe from little to big. I mean, there's so many things can happen. But again, these contracts are not flexible. These are fixed contracts that are impacting the Padres for not just days and weeks and months or even a year. They're impacting the Padres for the long term. And there's some benefits to that, and there's also some consequences to that. We'll see what it looks like when it's all put together here in 2026. Let's give away the 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park coming up next on the other side of a break. We'll give them away next, so do not call now. We'll do it on the other side of a break, plus much more on this with Kevin Acee, our Padres insider from the UT. He will join us coming up at 4 p.m. Rocco Miller, our bracketologist here today, 2 days out from Selection Sunday, will join us at 4:30, and we're getting ready for Aztecs basketball tonight. This massive showdown with New Mexico in the Mountain West semifinal with tip-off at 9 p.m., a game you can hear right here on San Diego Sports 760. Jon Schaefer with you from Vegas, Brent Sperry in San Diego. And this is San Diego Sports 760, where we are live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760. Apologize if you're watching on our YouTube stream. I can't get us off the ad probably until the next break. My computer's all bogged down. Who do I blame for that? Let me see, actually. Hold on. There we go. Made it work. All right, we're giving away a 4-pack of tickets. You know what happens, Brent, is like, I don't think you're like me in this regard. I will have like 100 browser windows open.
Oh, I have that.
Do you do that?
I have to.
Yeah, I love having 100 browser windows open, but then I hate when it like bogs down the computer. Why can't I have 25 browser windows open?
Yeah, I have to, because I have one for the rundown of the show, one for email, one for the prizes, one for email for the text line, one for my sponsors for my updates, one for ESPN in case something new happens with my updates, one for the podcast. So yeah, I have like 20 open at all times.
Yeah, and like a lot of mine like aren't necessarily like work related. Like I'm always just bouncing around. Like something pops in my head and I'm like, oh, let me check out like my Marriott Bonvoy points. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, let me check out the Fangraphs projected win-loss and bracketology. And let me Google something about the WBC, and I have Canva open. And like I don't know. It's just like wherever my mind takes me. But I feel like once I get to like 20 tabs open is when I get into trouble, which is probably where I am right now. Kevin Acee is going to join us, by the way, folks, coming up in 13 minutes. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider on the show, coming up in about 13 minutes. And in less than that time, let's say in the next 8 minutes, we have a 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. So we'll do that coming up in just a handful of minutes. Again, Aztecs tonight at 9, pregame coverage at 8. This is nitty gritty for the college basketball fan. I think most people that are sports fans but not college basketball fans, now you're starting to pay attention, right? Calendars flipped. You're in the middle of March. And then all of a sudden, everyone is just paying a ton of attention come next week, right? Selection Sunday, 48 hours out. Everyone wants to know who's in, who's out. And then from there, where's their favorite team playing? What's the seeding? What is it from a betting or bracket perspective? We have games in San Diego this year at VA House Arena. 8 different teams will be here, presumably one of the top teams in America as well. The Arizona Wildcats will be playing in San Diego this year. But this, for me, from a San Diego State perspective this year, I'm not thinking about the bubble. And I'm not thinking about Selection Sunday other than San Diego State winning the Mountain West. Other years, you're thinking about the bubble. You're thinking about your at-large chances. San Diego State right now is on the outside looking in. So when you're on the outside looking in, you can't put it in someone else's hands. It's like the WBC analogy. It's like Team USA was on the outside looking in. They put it in someone else's hands. They were reliant on something else occurring and to get a break. And they did. They did. And, we'll never remember it if the Team USA goes on to win the WBC. But here you are, and Selection Sunday's in 48 hours, and you're 80 minutes away from reaching the NCAA tournament if you win today and you win tomorrow. So it's just in your hands is the point. You put it in someone else's hands, you're asking for a less than desirable result. Now, of course, there have been years and a lot of years where San Diego State has done the work necessary to get to the tournament, regardless of what they do in the Mountain West tournament. Last year would be included in that. I mean, they had to wait it out, right? They were the second to last team in the field last year. They had to go to Dayton. And they ended up losing, obviously, to North Carolina. But the difference between this year and last year is it's like the difference between being hunted and the hunter. And I feel like right now, both San Diego State and New Mexico are hunters, which is interesting because they're facing each other in this situation. Both teams understand what's on the line. Neither is just holding on for dear life. Both have to build on what they've accomplished to this point. Both recognize that the only path to the tournament is through the other. So that often brings out the best in both sides and often produces some really competitive games across sports. So we may be in store for just one of those knockout, drag-out, terrific college basketball games. Maybe. I mean, it's hard to predict, but it would be fitting for the final meeting ever between San Diego State, New Mexico, at least in the Mountain West Conference, for the winner, again, to keep their hopes alive of reaching the NCAA tournament. But this is the agony and ecstasy stuff, and that is not it is cliche, but it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not going too far. That's how people are going to feel. I think you win this game tonight, you're on cloud 9 for 15 minutes before you turn your attention to tomorrow, and you lose this game, and it's agonizing because it's that time of year, because you can begin to see it, taste it, and feel it. You can see that Selection Sunday show. You can hear the CBS March Madness music. You can see the commentators, and you can see that bracket popping up, right? You can see here's the East Regional presented by Coca-Cola on your screen. You've seen it 100 times before, right? You can see those videos of the teams sitting in their various basketball facilities across the country, from Spokane with Gonzaga to Durham with Duke to teams that are squarely on the bubble, like, who knows, maybe a San Diego State or a New Mexico or Oklahoma, whomever else. But I mean, you can feel it, is the point. And you get so close, yet again, it's kind of far, because there's still 4 teams left here in this event, specifically in Las Vegas, and they're all good. All of them are good. Any one of them could win it. None of it is surprising to me. If New Mexico wins this tournament, I'm not going to say what a shock. I'm not going to say tonight what a failure by the Aztecs. How could you lose to New Mexico? These teams are near identical. Their metrics are near identical. Their seasons are near identical. The margins are thin. The parity is significant in this conference. And Brian Dutcher's talked about that for 2 months, if anyone's been listening. And then on the other side, Utah State's had this terrific year. They could absolutely pull off, a quote-unquote double, win the regular season, then win the conference tournament championship. Or Nevada, which upset Grand Canyon yesterday and has had a really nice year under Steve Alford. And they're also 2 wins away. And they beat Utah State at home in the regular season. So I don't think any of this is overly surprising. If it's San Diego State, you can see it because you've seen it before. It's happened a lot. If it's New Mexico, again, they have given the Aztecs great battles and significant challenges over the years in this event. And then Utah State, Nevada, we just touched on. So it's an exciting time of year. It really is. I think not just for college basketball fans, for sports fans, it's an exciting time of year where we've got this confluence. We got baseball, WBC, opening day 13 days out, Selection Sunday this weekend, and then the opening round of the NCAA tournament. And there's no better couple of days than that, obviously, whether your team is in or out. I think by then you're excited. If you're in this city, Las Vegas, where I am right now, I mean, the city's on fire. That first weekend of the NCAA tournament with so many people in town just to bet on the games and watch the games and enjoy the tournament and the bracket. So San Diego State can get there. It's in their hands, but they're going to have to take full advantage of the opportunity, would be my guess. I don't think they'll benefit. Certainly, if they lose this game, they'll be on the outside looking in. That's the consensus. I think Rocco Miller, bracketologist at bracketeer.org, will confirm that sentiment at 4:30. Now, nobody can predict what the selection committee is going to do. It is human beings. And oftentimes there are 1 or 2 surprises, to maybe 1. They say, wait, hold on. That team is in, another team is out. So you could, in theory, get lucky, or of course you could also get unlucky as well. But you don't want that. You don't want to wait on pins and needles. I don't even think you'd be on pins and needles. I think if you lose today, you're likely on the outside. If you win today and lose tomorrow, that's maybe a conversation for another day. But again, if you get that far, you just want to finish the job. If you get to tomorrow, at that point, you just want to finish the job here in Las Vegas. And we knew this is ultimate challenge. It really was. I felt that all week long. Like, sounds easy, doesn't it? 3 games in 3 days. It's like, sounds easy, like winning some type of lottery where it's like, oh, just pick 4. It's just 4 numbers. You know how hard that is. You know what the odds are. Or winning 3 straight games. I mean, just flip a coin 3 times. The odds of getting it right all 3 times are 12.5%. Like, not great. So, and there's a lot of good teams, and these are coin flip games, including tonight for San Diego State and New Mexico. All right. Call right now because we have a great giveaway. A 4-pack of tickets. Great giveaway. 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. One of our better giveaways, 877-767-4760 if you want those tickets. Absolutely free. 4-pack of tickets to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. Call 877-767-4760. The new Elephant Valley at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park lets you get up close and roam with the largest land animals on Earth. The elephants aren't the only ones who will never forget. Elephant Valley is now open. Tons to get to in the 4 o'clock hour, including a visit from our Padres insider, Kevin Acee, from the Union Tribune. He will join us next to kick off hour 3 as we get you ready for Padres baseball later this month and Aztecs basketball coming up tonight from Las Vegas between the Aztecs and the Lobos in the Mountain West semifinal. Hour 3 on San Diego Sports 760 and live on the iHeartRadio app comes your way next.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast. San Diego FC is on the road tomorrow to take on FC Dallas. Our coverage with Darren and Adrian will begin at 5 o'clock right here on your home for San Diego FC, San Diego Sports 760. The Aztecs are still in Vegas to continue the Mountain West Conference tournament tonight when they face New Mexico. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will begin a little after 8, and John will have the tip after 9. On the next Our American Stories podcast, they'll share the story of the queen of the sharpshooter herself. We're, of course, talking about Annie Oakley. You won't want to miss the next episode of Our American Stories.
All right, San Diego Sports 760 here on. I can hear myself in return, Brandon. Is it? All right. John, back I know. I don't think it is. It's in my return. For whatever reason, I hear myself coming back. Oh, okay. We got Kevin. Kevin, it is okay. All right, bear with me. I'm now good. I'm working on. We've had a couple of technical issues. Kevin understands.
I know you got a long day ahead, so let's Kevin, just,
Kevin, can I tell you about my day for a second? Because I know your schedule is crazy. Covering baseball, I know your schedule is crazy. For what my day today is crazy because the Aztecs play at 9 p.m. I'm doing this 4-hour radio show. I'm in Las Vegas. I don't know what time it is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
It's unbelievable how much time you have before that game starts.
Right? It's still 5 hours. Padres could play the whole WBC.
I'm going to give you something, though.
Okay.
I'm going to give you something, a little knowledge that maybe you didn't have, because I heard the Annie Oakley reference. Okay. Did you hear the sports update and the sponsor and then this Annie Oakley show that's going to be on? You know where she's from?
No idea.
She was born in North Star, Ohio.
Okay. There
is one other famous resident of North Star, Ohio.
Is that Craig
Stammen? A town of 250 people. Craig Stammen and Annie Oakley, born in the same town.
Oh my gosh! This is
so
why
there
people
you
tune in.
go.
I love that.
There you go.
That is a great way to get us started. All right, let's get. There's a
you
lot
make
to
the big bucks, Kev.
This is exactly. That's why you're our insider, Kevin Acee from the UT with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. You've been writing on Joe Musgrove over the last 24 hours. For our listeners, what's the latest with Joe and his health with the season now less than 2 weeks away?
It just seems very, very unlikely that he's going to start the season in the rotation. And whether that's that he misses the first turn through, they play 6 games in their first 8 days. Does he get back on the mound here early in the week and then get on one start here and then goes, stays and gets a minor league start and then he's able to go? Or is it 2 or 3 turns that he misses and then boom, is able to, what they hope will be hit the ground running. But he had to be shut down. He came back and the arm didn't feel great after a pretty good and strong and promising outing. And I'm not trying to paint this as like a rosy picture, but also this isn't entirely unexpected either. Now, did they hope or did they think it would be after his first spring training start? I don't know that they did, but I just want to make it clear. They're not just like doing some sort of revisionist history or trying to say, oh, this is okay. They've been saying all along, they didn't know how it was going to go. And that there would be probably more than one time where Joe would get some extra rest. And right now that's what it is. And Joe, maintains that that's all it is. That's what the Padres maintain is that's all it is. And so that's where we're at.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like this with Tommy John. By the way, it's been such a successful surgery over the years. By and large, those that have Tommy John recover from it. Now, it's different when you have it multiple times. But by and large, maybe not always, but like anything in life, you can't say something always occurs. But players do recover from it. But it is fair to say that it really can be a roller coaster for the player that next year. And it's so dependent on some guys are on 12-month timelines because of when they have it. Other guys have 18 months, more like Joe. Some feel great after this amount of time. Others, then it's the control factor. So, we should just kind of expect the unexpected, right? I'm not expecting the worst, to your point, but I am expecting the unexpected a little bit with Joe over the next few months.
Yes, and he could be. This is a great point, and it's what I wrote after his first start. That hey, that was real nice, but hey, here's what could happen, and then lo and behold, here we are. It was just like 5 or 6 days later. That's exactly what happened. It's just the bumpy road began. He could be on track and killing it. You know who was on track last spring training, coming back from Tommy John and having, from my understanding, a really strong spring? Sandy Alcantara. Mm. And then what was his regular season like for the first 4 months? Terrible. And so, that's the kind of thing that could happen, is that, Joe could be cruising along now. Everyone's, this is going to be great. He's going to throw 150 innings. He's going to have a 2-something ERA. And the season started, and you don't know what's going to happen. So it's not good. I mean, I think that goes without saying, but I realize I'm playing it down a little bit. So I want to make sure I'm clear. I don't think anyone should be happy about this or be like, there's no concern, but this also was not unexpected.
When you're dealing with uncertainty, I'll broaden it out to now the Padres rotation. The thing with Musgrove, there was going to be, maybe some highs and lows. I'm sure the Padres anticipated it, at least to some extent. How do they deal with that uncertainty? When you just look at the rotation as a whole, who's that 6th or 7th option right now that becomes realistic that might be filling in early if necessary?
Well, not to scoop myself, because I don't like to do that, but I'm starting to think broader and talk to people broader. So you have Walker Buehler, who I think is going to be your number 5. And then, people in the organization were talking about German Marquez. Now, they weren't talking about him going to win the Cy Young, or was certainly on the team, but was like a favorite. There's a contract situation, his veteran status, and he got destroyed. And from my understanding, I wasn't there, Jeff Sanders was. It was a night game. That's called veteran move. And so it was a night spring training game. Oh, geez. And so he looked terrible. And so, okay, where do you go from there? Is it Marco Gonzalez? It's probably not Tristan McKenzie, though he, is an option. So is it JT Sears, who, looked okay and has looked better as the spring has gone on? Sure, those are options. But what about the idea that right now, like I said, they play 6 games in 8 days? What about they go with 5 guys, and then they've got this super deep bullpen, and they've got Logan Gillespie, Jackson Wolf, Kyle Hart, all having great springs? What if it's like they try to put together a bullpen game if things have gone well with their first 5 starters or whatever it is, because they have the 2 off days in 8 days. Maybe they're going through with 5 guys until whatever, I've mapped it out, the 10th game or something, the 12th game, and then they go a bullpen game, or they throw a bullpen game in there somewhere. It's there's some creative ways they can go with the depth of their bullpen. Now, that can also go terribly sideways on you. So I'm not saying that's what they're planning on doing, but they do have some options.
I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin Acee is our Padres insider with us right now on San Diego Sports 760. Two things are true, and I think you've made this point. On one hand, of course, everyone wants Joe Musgrove to be healthy. But on the other hand, even if he isn't, at least to start the year, this is what teams deal with. They play 162 games. If there's a couple of starts in there that are question marks, or, you don't have the best pitching matchup in the sport, that can be overcome, right? I mean, over the course of 162, they can find ways to navigate this, assuming Joe ultimately finds his health along the way.
Yes. And and you know what? The offense got to score 6-7 runs sometimes. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's got to go hand in hand. But I mean, we've talked about this before. I know you've spent a fair amount of time on it. It's the reason that, people like whatever it is, it's Steamers or whatever, the fan grass is down on the Padres, and it's fairly straightforward, right? They're starting with this big question. But to your point, a good team, every team's going to have these things, and a good team finds a way to overcome it. Did the Dodgers have one guy with 150 innings last year? Now, I'm not saying just because it's been done by the richest team, the deepest team in history, that's how it's going to be done, or that's how you should model your team around. But when you face speed bumps, then you got to, find a way around it. And I am now watching the Dominican just unload on Korea, by the way.
Oh, interesting, because I didn't realize that. I don't have that on. And you're now, hold on. Well, let's segue now for a minute. So, because if the Dominican gets to the semifinals, and we've got these Padres, obviously these critical figures in Tatis and Machado, how do you plan on covering the WBC if these teams are advancing?
Well, I'll be there. I will leave tomorrow if Dominican wins, because you got the two guys in there, and I feel like that's a San Diego story that could be facing Mason Miller in the semis, but it's really about Manny and Tatis, and I just feel like that's something that we can offer to our readers for me to be there and kind of paint that scene. So
really cool.
I was reasonably sure before this game started, but I believe this is all with 2 outs, just like boom, 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 and it's 3-0 in the second.
Yep, 3-0 right now. You've been writing about the ownership. What is the latest in terms of a potential sale when it comes to a timeline? And are we still at 5 groups, or is that now whittled down from where we were just a few weeks ago?
We're down to 4. Reasonably sure, based on the people I checked with today, that the 3 groups we know about are still a part of that 4, but I do not know that for sure. So, but that people are like, look, there's only a small group of people who met with the 4 prospective owners that were in Peoria this week, and no one's saying who they are. I've said all along when I'm talking with you and elsewhere that this is not the kind of thing that people are willing to talk about, but those 4 groups did come. And look, to me, the interesting part is like, this is a coveted property, and these guys are going to get north of $3 billion. And I remember when, in the beginning, it was said like 275 around there. If you're like, what? No. Yeah, right. That's what sports franchises go for now. And this is one that, that's a really good fan base and a really good team and a really good venue and a really good city. And so to me, that's the really interesting part, is that this price is just going to shatter the Mets record. That doesn't mean that if the Mets were to sell again, or the Phillies or the Dodgers, of course, or the Yankees, that it wouldn't break that. But in terms of record-breaking prices of teams that, will have sold probably by April, Padres are going to get a price that I think might shock some people, but shouldn't shock people.
Which is interesting. Just one follow-up on that. So to break down that math for a moment, because isn't the largest shareholder the Seidler Trust, which includes Sheila and her children? Is that correct?
Yep.
So 24-ish%. So think about, just the sheer math on that. A quarter of $3 billion is $750 million. So rough numbers, it's an incredible amount of, the windfall is incredible. The payout here is, it's unbelievable, obviously, and it's going to be the reason why they put the team up.
Someone like John Seidler, who stepped up for his family, a huge baseball fan, but not a guy who necessarily, was terribly involved with the Padres or has a big share. So let's say his share is 4%, right? $120 million based on a $3 billion sale.
That's amazing amount of money. Kevin, before you go, Xander Bogaerts, I know you communicated with him, you've caught up with him as he gets ready for year 4 in San Diego. What's the general sense from Bogaerts in terms of where he is right now in his career and what he wants to see himself look like in, his 4th year in San Diego?
Just give the Padres, give himself a few more years of being the kind of player that he was. And I know we talked about this, but it will never cease to amaze me how good this man was for, let's call it 6 years. And then how bad he has been for half of every year that he's been here. And then for half of every year he's been here, he's actually been pretty close to what he was in Boston throughout, his good years. And so that's what he keeps seeking. It's really amazing how strongly he has finished each of his 3 seasons here. And the guy looks great. Does that matter? No. But, better than coming in fat, I guess. Right. He did have a really nice finish again last year. I think it's super important, but I think we've talked about this before. Like, you can't predict what is going to be the difference with a team. Like Xander could stink, but oh man, Manny and Fernando had career years, or Jackson and Fernando had career years. Well, but Xander Bogaerts can be that guy who can get the Padres over the hump. He can be, or at least, his past suggests that. I thought last year was a important year for us to find out about him. And so that makes this year even more important for us to find out who Xander Bogaerts is, because this is his age 33 season. Like, that's as old as me in real life. Like, that's beyond middle age, basically.
Right. In the sport. It's a good point. And still
in baseball terms.
Yeah. And still the first half of his contract with the Padres. So that's, and we've had that kind. It's for another day, but I mean, it's a business. So there's going to have to be a level of production, not just now, but moving forward for Xander Bogaerts.
He's very aware. Look, we can never view, if Xander Bogaerts paid Jake Cronenworth money, we would have thought it was a great, a fine contract, right?
Definitely.
He doesn't. He makes $25 million every year. So
therein lies. Better. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Kevin, appreciate you taking time. Safe travels if you are ultimately traveling this week coming up for the WBC, and we will catch up with you again next week. All right.
Right on. Take care.
All right, great stuff from our Padres insider, Kevin Acee. We're going to react to that on the other side. Plus, coming up at 4:30, Rocco Miller, our bracketologist, here on San Diego Sports 760 from Bracketeer.org. This is San Diego Sports 760. Stay with us. All right, back with you here on San Diego Sports 760. Rocco Miller, bracketologist, will join us at 4:30 on the final business day before Selection Sunday, right? That's coming up in 2 days. So Rocco Miller back on the show. His thoughts on San Diego State and New Mexico. They score off here tonight in this massive showdown in Las Vegas, a game you can hear on 760 at 9 p.m. with pregame coverage just after 8 p.m. We do remind you the award show for fans is back. It's the iHeartRadio Music Awards coming to San Diego Sports 760 and Fox on March 26th. And if you want to be there in person, you can win a trip for $4,000 and $1,000 spending cash. Just listen to San Diego Sports 760 on the free iHeartRadio app. Tap the red microphone to leave us a talkback saying the keyword iHeart Awards. Again, the keyword at the talkback mic is iHeart Awards, and that is your chance to be entered. All right, really insightful conversation there with Kevin on a couple of topics: Joe Musgrove, ownership, Xander Bogaerts, WBC. First mention, by the way, the Padres today in the Cactus League. They have busted out the bats again. They're beating the Athletics today in the ninth inning, 13-8. So always encouraging. But again, without a lot of the regulars right now because of the WBC, including Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado. And on cue, man, Tatis is like, again, I said it maybe earlier this week, whoever that was, Sergio Dip, the interview he did with Vance Joseph with the Denver Broncos. Like, he's having the time of his life. That's Fernando Tatis Jr. Anytime Tatis is playing in like the WBC or the playoffs in Major League Baseball, the guy just goes on a binge. He's just having the time of his life. And tonight it's an elimination game because it's the quarterfinals. Winner moves on to the semifinals, and they're playing Korea. And they had this big 3-run rally with 2 outs in the second inning. So early, but 3-0 Dominican over Korea. And Tatis has a 2-out RBI single in this game. Machado has started as well in this game. I mean, I know it's 5 games for Tatis, but 1,500 OPS in 5 games is really impressive. He's been better than Juan Soto's been. He's been better than Junior Camareno has been. He's been like Vladdy. He's been like Vlad Guerrero in this event so far because Guerrero has been on fire as well. But, I mean, this could ultimately be the champion. This Dominican team, we talked about their lineup. Their pitching is held up. And then, again, the nightcap in the WBC is the U.S. and Canada, where one of those 2 teams is going to move on as well. So, again, it's been an interesting tournament. I think I'm at the point. Is this cool? Like, is this cool, Brent, for me to root for the Dominican? Like, am I allowed to root for the Dominican over the U.S.? Is that not allowed? I can't do that?
Not over them.
What if? So you're saying if they play, I have to root for Tatis and Machado to not be good?
It's kind of like the fantasy football thing.
Right.
You can root for them to do well and hope they lose, but if they do well, they're probably not going to lose.
True. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if it is, I guess, U.S. versus Dominican, yeah, you're okay. You want to see the U.S. win it, but not really at the expense of Tatis and Machado playing well. Like, I wouldn't want to see Tatis to strike out to end the WBC, for example, against the U.S. Like, that's not something I would be personally looking forward to seeing.
Well, that's like the Major League Baseball All-Star game. It's like every year it's just like, okay, let's not have it be a Cub that gives up the game-winning home run or has some sort of error or, big thing. So then the next morning everyone's like, oh, it's all PCA's fault or something like this. So
yeah,
it could be that way to where it's just like, okay, we just don't want the Dominican to lose on a Tatis error or something that's going to look bad.
Can you imagine? No, you bring up a great point with the fantasy sports element. It's like you start like you're a diehard Bears fan, for example, like Brent, and now you're rooting against Caleb Williams because of a fantasy matchup. But you're a diehard Bears fan, and they need to win the game, and you want Caleb to because they're not winning without Caleb Williams playing well. But you're playing Caleb Williams in fantasy. So I don't find that a true win-win. That's more like a lose-lose sometimes when you're in those situations. But yeah, I guess I mean, at the end of the day, if it comes down to the U.S. versus the Dominican, I think probably most Padres fans are rooting for the U.S. I think some might be rooting for like their players. And again, I'm going to be fine with it either way. To your point, in real time, okay, I buy it. We're American. So you're rooting for the U.S. side. But like, are you going to care 48 hours later if the Dominican wins? Or like 4 days later? Or 10 days later? I don't think most people will. So, maybe it's a bit of a win-win. I just think it's encouraging what's happening with Tatis. And again, nobody's suggesting he can do this for 100 and something games. And of course not. But like, he's got to have all kinds of confidence right now. He wrote something, I think, in the Sporting Tribune or what is it, or the Players Tribune, whatever it is, where athletes pen stuff online. And it was pretty interesting. He talked about his love for the Dominican and growing up there and the country's infatuation with baseball and his love for the sport. It was pretty interesting. So I do think he's really having a marvelous experience. We don't know how it ends, but I think it's an amazing experience for him. And I hope it's a like launching pad, so to speak, for him this year. Not to say that he's going to do it all year long, but I do hope it is a launching pad for him here in 2026. All right, Rocco Miller on the other side, our bracketologist from bracketeer.org. He is in Vegas. I saw him last night, and he will get us ready for San Diego State and New Mexico. Everything we need to know with Rocco Miller coming up next here on 760.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories podcast. San Diego FC is on the road tomorrow to take on FC Dallas. Our coverage begins at 5 o'clock right here on San Diego Sports 760. The Aztecs are in Vegas for the Mountain West Conference tournament. Their next game is against New Mexico. Our pregame coverage begins tonight at 8 o'clock, and John will have the tip a little after 9. Our next American Stories podcast, they'll tell the tragic and triumphant tale of America's cowboy and Oklahoma legend, Will Rogers. You won't want to miss the next episode of Our American Stories.
Brent mentions that we are in Vegas for this critical event, the final Mountain West tournament for San Diego State on its way to the Pac-12, and we've got some matchups tonight. The first one is Utah State and Nevada, and then the encore against San Diego State and New Mexico. And here to talk about it all and what's on the line is Rocco Miller, friend of the show, I think back with us for a third time this bracketology season, and he's at bracketeer.org. I caught up with him yesterday, saw him in Vegas. So great to reconnect with Rocco. And what a time of year, Rocco. Just give it to us bluntly. For San Diego State and New Mexico, what is on the line tonight for these two teams?
The entire season, and it's as blunt as you can be, right?
Yeah.
You know, your whole goal is to get to the NCAA tournament. Two very high standard programs. I would argue the Aztecs, the program with the highest standards in the league, and you can't get there with a loss tonight. I don't think either team can. So there's that. There is somewhat of a path and hope should the winner tonight play Utah State for the championship game and lose in a, maybe it doesn't even matter what the score is, but just get to that opportunity, because whoever wins tonight will gain a little bit of ground. We know that the wins above bubble tool is highly, highly promoted throughout the season, whether it be Dan Gavitt, David Warlock, who runs the NCAA tournament, the selection chair, Keith Gill, on the bracket preview show. So we understand that gives this game a little bit of extra weight, because the way that the tool is built is that it's an accumulation tool, and you'll get credit for the win. Now, for me personally, and I'm hoping the committee is doing the same thing, I've budgeted 2 spots for the league because I thought there was a better chance than 50. I think it was closer to 70 that somebody other than Utah State would win this tournament. So we'll see how that plays out. There's still a 3 and 4 chance. If all things are equal. Yeah. And then there's still the opportunity of either of these teams that win tonight, and if they fall to Utah State, might have done enough to get in that large bid.
All right, so this is the time of year Rocco Miller's with us, where if you are in a bubble situation, and I think most people agree, including most San Diego State fans, it's my opinion as well, that these teams have work to do. They've had good years, but not enough as of yet to get into the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, what are you rooting for? You're rooting for a lack of bid stealers as well, right? Because the winner of this game, again, if they can't win on Saturday, their most realistic path is by making sure there isn't more of a mess around other conference tournaments, right? We've had one bid stealer essentially so far with Miami of Ohio not winning their conference tournament, and now you're hoping for kind of chalk elsewhere?
That's correct, yep. So I think, interestingly enough, the Mountain West itself is the most likely to have a second, just depending on where the committee's at with both the Aztecs and the Lobos. But then, of course, if Nevada won it, that would certainly be a bid steal. And then you look at Georgetown, who's left in the Big East. Looks like Seton Hall is about to lose, so we can cross them off. That's a good thing for the Lobos and the Aztecs tonight. You can look at the way Oklahoma's playing, or even Ole Miss, who's still alive in the SEC. There's a few other examples across the board, right? I think the ACC, there's no chance anymore, so that's good. Same with the Big 12. And we'll see what happens in the Atlantic 10. I think the Atlantic 10 is more similar to the Mountain West, where they're not going to get more than 2 teams. St. Louis is for sure in, so that's basically their version of Utah State. And now we wait and see if VCU will either get in as an at-large or just maybe win this tournament. But I think if VCU loses anywhere in the tournament and someone else wins it, they will likely not have a path to the at-large, fair or unfair. It's just really hard to see that league getting 3, much like the Mountain West at this stage in the game. We only have a few more results to go, John.
Yeah, no doubt. It's crazy. I mean, Selection Sunday, obviously, within 48 hours now. You do this for a living, and you watch all these games come in, and you look at the metrics and the analytics. How do you explain the quote-unquote, maybe as soft of a bubble as we have seen? Is that because of our reliance on some of these metrics that automatically disqualify teams that 25 years ago might have had quote-unquote better resumes, but when you take the deeper dive, they're not as good? Like back in the day, a 26-5 team, making it up, like Belmont, I don't even know what the record is. Maybe they're finding their way in, but now it's like, well, the metrics don't support their inclusion in this event, and now all of a sudden you've got these 13 and 14 and 15 lost teams, and they're not very good, and that explains the soft bubble. Like, how do you justify it and explain it?
Yeah, I think there's something to do with that. I feel like the last 10 years we've had bubble issues. Most cases, most seasons, if you're on the bubble, you have warts to begin with. And if you're in those super conferences, which most of the bubble teams are, you're probably losing at least a game a week on average, if not more. And that's just really hard to stomach. Because are you really successful? Are you really deserving of a bid? I understand the affinity and the talent level that they possess. And if that's all that matters, then let's just give them bids at the start of the year. I'm more a little bit old school in the way that I feel like you should be rewarded for achieving great success. So I think the example this year, you could look at a South Florida out of the American. The American's a a higher budget conference, much like the Mountain West. And Memphis is the flagship school. They had their worst year this year. They're already way out of it. But South Florida had a great year. They got 25, 26 wins. They didn't get the big wins out of conference. They had to take a couple losses throughout the conference play, but that's to be expected. It's not an easy league to go perfect in by any means. And they're not even being discussed really. So you just kind of cringe at that a little bit when you are taking a look at a Texas team, for example, that, if you take away their quad 4 results, they're 10-14. Oklahoma's like the toast of the town right now, but they're still 12-14 in that category. And it just, they get all the opportunities. Every one of their at-bats are very critical at-bats. And, it's just an unbalanced game. Plus in those leagues, John, the other thing is the schedules are a lot of them are unbalanced, particularly in the Big 12, where you see teams like TCU and UCF getting bids this year. I think in both of those cases, I know UCF's case for sure, they played the Elite Six teams in the league just one time. And so they were able to kind of be the dominant team of the bottom half. And they've now kind of schemed the schedule within the conference to make sure that one or two of those bottom teams can get in. And you saw Oklahoma State kind of flirt with that for a while, and TCU was outside. But so now they got two of those teams in, plus their Elite Six. A lot of that happened in the ACC a little bit as well. And so that's why I think too, you see the backloaded schedule part of it. That's kind of my third nugget here, is why so many of these teams, they still have big opportunities the last couple of weekends of the year. And I think we'll probably remember for a while now that last Saturday were 7 bubble teams or more all lost. Maybe it was 9 actually. Right. But those opportunities are dialed up in the fall when the schedules get built. So you kind of try to anticipate that if you're the conference. So I think that's why we're seeing so much of it, but there's clearly a divide between the top teams in the country and in these leagues, and then the next set of teams.
You made an interesting point in terms of, everyone's understood this, that the, power leagues have more opportunities, quote unquote, to enhance their resume than teams outside of the power structure. And there's advantages and disadvantages, maybe both ways. And listen, teams have plenty of opportunities, but I go back, like, this is what sports are in basketball. San Diego State lost a game, you'll remember this game, in Phoenix by a point to Grand Canyon, controversially, with an amazing officiating crew. A foul was called with 1 second left. Most believe it was improperly called. Who cares? It's neither here nor there. Ultimately, that a game like that, a moment like that, one call can be the difference for San Diego State being in or out of the field. Now, again, you look at like a school in the SEC. Again, you could lose a game like that, and you could lose more games like that, but you pick up 1 or 2 along the way against that top 40 caliber opponent, and you can make up for it. Just San Diego State hasn't had as many opportunities to necessarily make up for that. Now, they lost to Grand Canyon at home, so they had that, in their hands, and they didn't take advantage of it. But I guess my point is the margins are much thinner than I think people realize outside of the power leagues. Even when people talk about, it's a historically bad bubble, And I don't disagree with that, but I also recognize what some of these teams outside the power leagues are up against to navigate their way to an at-large berth. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the frustrating part as somebody who tracks this every day at all the different levels, is just that the opportunities aren't the same. I get that to a degree, but I also think it's very difficult in the Mountain West, for example, but other leagues too, to go win on the road. You got extreme differences between the locations in the Mountain West. And it's very difficult to go into a lot of those buildings and get a win. I certainly have more respect for it than the majority of the committee. I think it also doesn't help that there's nobody from the Mountain West currently on the committee. So there's that part of it too. I can't prove that it helps or hurts. Obviously, the league's done pretty well the last 3 years, going 4, 6, then 4 again with the bid allocation. It is tough. But the good news is I think the Pac-12 next year, you and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, they will have they figure to have 3 to 4 bids on an average year, I would imagine. San Diego State and Gonzaga being premier programs, Utah State being very consistent these last 5 years at least, right? No matter who they're coach agnostic. We'll see if they need a new one again next year. And then you have the Colorado State Boise combo that have been pretty good. I think 4 out of the last 7 tournaments, assuming they both missed this year. So those problems will quickly go away for Aztec fans. But I do think this year's just been really, really frustrating because the non-conference, you take the home loss to Troy.
Yeah.
Baylor ends up having a horrible year. You have to own that loss. And then you beat Oregon, and then this ends up being Oregon's worst year, probably of the entire Dana Altman era. So,
right.
Yep. So it's just like some of this stuff is up to chance, and some years you get those breaks, some years you don't. But the one thing I did like about last night's game, John, was you saw that San Diego State physicality come back. And out of every team I saw yesterday, if they can just do that 2 more days, regardless of the competition, I don't think there's a team that can beat them in this tournament. So let's just get the automatic qualifier. I think that the Aztecs are set up well if they can maintain that level for 2 more nights.
All right, that'll set up my final question, Rocco, and I appreciate you taking time as we know it's busy inside 48 hours to Selection Sunday. If the Aztecs win this tournament, what seed will they be?
I think they slot in perfectly to that last 11 seed that's just sitting there. Right now, because of the bid steal in the MAC and because of potentially a second Mountain West team, which would be the Aztecs in this example, everybody had to bump up a spot. So there's one extra number 11 seed compared to where the projections were, just last week. And it would go right into Portland because right now, because of BYU, they have to go to a Thursday site. If BYU is, in fact, that last 6 seed where we have them projected, they will play in the same pot as Gonzaga. And, of course, for the Mountain West champion, whether it's San Diego State or otherwise, they would slot perfectly in there. BYU has not played San Diego State. They have not played any of the other combinations, New Mexico or Nevada. And I think you would be right there playing BYU in the first round with a chance to play Gonzaga, a future rival, in the second round. So we'll see if that plays out. Obviously, if BYU moves to a 7, it would be a different team, but I think that Portland spot would still be there. And given all the circumstances, to get a preferred site like that would be a pretty magical landing spot after all of this chaos.
It would be amazing, pretty fortuitous, as good as anywhere other than Viejas Arena, which of course they won't be playing in here in the upcoming Mountain West tournament. Rocco, great insight. Awesome seeing you. Are you at the semifinals tonight, or where are you at tonight?
No, I got on the last flight home last night. I'm back in the bracket. Yeah, I'm in the bracket bunker, did the show today on Field of 68, and then we'll be reacting live on Sunday, Jeff Goodman and myself and Brad Wachtel, who helps out as well with the bracket side. And it's always a lot of fun. So if you want to turn something else on during the selection show, pull us up on your laptop. We'll be on live reacting. And, hopefully no showstoppers this year. I just want it to be a smooth announcement, but I have a funny feeling there'll be at least one surprise.
I was going to say there's always one surprise. And if there is a surprise that, again, if the Aztecs don't win this tournament, I'll take that as the surprise. But Rocco, appreciate you taking time for us and look forward to connecting soon. Enjoy the next 48 hours.
All right. Enjoy the game tonight. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. All right. We'll react to that coming up on the other side on San Diego Sports 760. All right, back with you on San Diego Sports 760. In the 5 o'clock hour, you're going to hear from both John Sadak, who will call tonight's Mountain West semifinal, including San Diego State, New Mexico. And we'll also hear from Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, much more, again, on the potential sale of the Padres, Joe Musgrove's status heading into the season, and Xander Bogaerts' expectations for 2026. I mean, it's amazing that baseball season is essentially here. I mean, the Padres are 13 days away from playing in the regular season. Padres winning the Cactus League earlier today. Our attention for, this week has been on the WBC. It will be next week as well. The Dominican is moving on. I mean, they're up 7-0. So barring a complete catastrophe in the important game, it's only the third inning. So yeah, crazier things have happened, but they are all over the Korean WBC team. And Tatis now has 2 RBIs in this game. And his unbelievably productive WBC continues. Manny Machado has an RBI in this game and a base hit. He's been good. He hasn't been as good as Fernando Tatis Jr. And, this is one of the great stories, again, in the WBC. And the Dominican, I think they can – I don't know if you can run rule someone in the quarterfinal. I think you can. I don't think you can do it in the semifinal or the final. But they might run rule Korea because they're still batting in the third inning with the bases loaded, with the chance to open up an even larger lead than 7-0. So this is a little bit of the appetizer tonight, because later on tonight, you've got the U.S. and Canada. And then I think it's tomorrow afternoon, you have Puerto Rico and Italy. Italy's been one of the darlings here. And then you've got Venezuela and Japan. And then, again, those winners feed into the semifinals next week, and then ultimately that championship game coming up in the WBC. So, again, U.S. plays later on tonight against Canada. And listen, it's baseball, so it's hard to really know what to predict. And again, I think the expectations heading into their loss against Italy was that the U.S. would have their way with Italy, and that didn't necessarily transpire. And they're not going to. There's no more mulligans. There's no more second chances. There's no. Well, if they lose to Canada, they might. No, if they lose to Canada, they're done. So I hope they look at it like that, a little bit like what we talked about with college basketball here today. Like there's no second chances right now. There's no 9 lives. Like it's all in your hands. It is a true win or go home. And so that makes for good theater, and that makes for good television. And I think that's why you've seen these good ratings. Like I just saw that I think Fox had over 2 million viewers for a WBC game that didn't include the U.S. for the first time ever. That was that Italy-Mexico game, because a lot was riding on it for the United States. That was the game they were supposed to televise on Tubi that they upgraded to like FS1 or FS2, and that had 2 million viewers. So I think a lot of Americans were intrigued because they wanted to see if the U.S. would move on or not. So this tournament has done its job. It's raised the awareness of the sport. I think it's gotten people excited for the start of the regular season. I think there's high drama in terms of, is it going to be the Dominican with, Tati and Machado? Is it going to be this U.S. team that, against some odds, considering they didn't control their own destiny, is able to pull it off at home? Is it going to be Japan again? It would be their 4th WBC title in 6 years. So there's some good intrigue and drama right now in this event, and that's what you want. I think as a viewer, again, is it my favorite format? It's probably not, with some of the tiebreakers and pool play and where the games are played and how you're determining some of this, but it has proven to provide some compelling matchups to this point. And that includes, again, even an Italy-Mexico game that heading into this, I never would have thought in a million years we would ever even mention. Yet that was a big topic of discussion. And again, 2 million Americans thought it was a big enough topic to tune in the other day. So you got that, and you've got just an awesome weekend of college basketball. If you're a college basketball fan, the intrigue of these conference tournaments and Selection Sunday and everything that comes with it. So I'm looking forward to the weekend, and I'm looking forward to tonight again when San Diego State gets back on the floor against the University of New Mexico. And I think you'll enjoy our conversation coming up in a few minutes. If you missed it earlier with John Sadak, I mentioned it earlier. I go way back with John, who's a TV broadcaster for CBS Sports and also the TV announcer for the Cincinnati Reds, and really, really terrific college basketball announcer. And he's been here all weekend. And it's funny the spots that I run into him at. Like we were in Laramie, and he's calling the game on CBS, and then he works for Westwood One, and I ran into him a couple years ago at Viejas Arena the last time the NCAA tournament was at Viejas, and here he is in Vegas for the Mountain West tournament. So he's got really good insight to share on San Diego State, New Mexico, also on that Utah State, Nevada game, and then also again in the 5 o'clock hour, you're going to hear from Kevin Acee, who I think is making his way for Florida because the Dominican team is going to move on to the semifinals, barring again a complete collapse, because they are again, leading here today over Korea in the WBC. Again, last check, they were leading 7-0, and it is 7-0 through 3 innings in that WBC game. So we'll hear from John Sadak coming up. On the other side, you'll hear from Kevin Acee at 5:30. Aztec pregame at 8. Tip-off between the Aztecs and the Lobos coming up at 9 p.m. Stay with us. This is San Diego Sports 760. We're live on the iHeartRadio app.
This report is sponsored by Discover. The Aztecs continue the Mountain West Conference tournament tonight in Vegas when they face New Mexico. Our pregame coverage with Fletch will begin a little after 8, and John will have the tip after 9. San Diego FC's on the road as well to take on FC Dallas. Our coverage will begin tomorrow night at 5 o'clock right here on your home for San Diego Sports 760. Guess what? Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard that right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/credit card.
All right, back with you here on San Diego Sports 760, with you until 6, and then again, Aztecs basketball coming up tonight, pregame coverage at 8, tip-off at 9, San Diego State, New Mexico in the Mountain West semifinals. If you missed it earlier, we caught up with the TV voice tonight for this Mountain West semifinal doubleheader, Jon Sadak, CBS Sports, and we started the conversation by asking if tonight could have any bigger stakes than this matchup.
You're exactly right. And it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me, going back to the Carolina League days. And now here talking about the bubble, right? I mean, this is the ultimate bubble game. The truth is, this is an elimination game. The winner is guaranteed nothing, but the loser is done. I just don't see, with how crowded the field is and with how many bid thieves have emerged with so many one seeds going down in the mid-major landscape. I actually think something I'll bring up on the broadcast tonight, Ryan Dutcher probably put it better than any coach that I've heard frame it this way. It's the first time I've heard it framed this way. And you're probably already familiar with it. I'm sure he shared it with you, that he said it's the power conferences and then everyone else is essentially one group. All the mid-majors are one giant conference fighting for X number of spots. And one of those spots won't be determined by tonight, but one of the teams in the running for it will be eliminated by tonight. And I think it speaks to the greatest two powers in the league, arguably the greatest rivalry in the league. These are the two teams that have combined for the most championships, and it's a fitting, likely end, barring some kind of other unforeseen circumstance of scheduling in the future, to a storied rivalry.
Yeah, it's like you just can't write it better than this. I know you and I were not necessarily bracketologists, but again, we cover college basketball. Would you envision the winner of this game, if they didn't win tomorrow, to make the field?
It's a great question. I mean, right now, our bracketologists with CBS Sports have both among those first four out. In fact, in that second and third ranked spot out of those four teams. Right now, I think you have a very compelling case. And I think also one of the other compelling cases, and each year to some extent is a vacuum, right? Or that's part of the idea. But I do think there is heft and weight to some carryover of the pedigree of a league and what it has meant. And San Diego State's one of those flagships with the Mountain West, going to the title game only a handful of years ago. This league has put four teams in the tournament for 4 straight years. 2 years ago, a half dozen teams made the tournament. So the concept of, if it were Utah State to advance from the other semifinal, and if Utah State were to fall, that would be necessary to make it a multi-bid league. That does seem kind of odd, right? Because I don't see that giant drop-off. In fact, if anything, Utah State's record is indicative of how competitive this league has gotten. They were the regular season champs with 5 losses, the most losses ever by a Mountain West regular season champion. That shows the depth that this league has right now.
Yeah, it's great perspective. Jon Sadak will be on the call tonight. Again, the Mountain West semifinals getting underway at 6:30. San Diego State, New Mexico, a little after 9 from the Thomas and Mack Center. I go back to, it wasn't long ago. We're sitting at the Pit in New Mexico, that blaring building, an incredible game that the Lobos were able to pull out. There was a controversial call late in that game as well. They went to replay, and there was a lot that went into that game. Hopped the San Diego and hit that big 3 on the wing as well. When you think about a game like this, I thought that game at the Pit and really the season series between these two teams has come down to rebounding. New Mexico has an outstanding rebounder inside in Tomislav Buljan. San Diego State at their best has been good on the glass, but they're, when they haven't been at their best, they've been, out rebounded, and second chance points have piled up against them. Does this simply come down to rebounding tonight for the Aztecs and the Lobos?
I think that's one of the critical keys, right? It's a critical part of it. The possessions that you can create, because that can just erase a lot of other types of mistakes or diminish many other advantages. I think it's a crucial part Bullion is just a beast. He is just so different. And I think the analogy that I've heard other analysts and coaches bring up, I did not come up with a concept in any way, but that he probably fits the best. He has a gravitational impact on play, the spacing, what it allows for teams to do. So eroding that, I think, changes the dynamic of New Mexico's offense significantly. If he still possesses it, then it liberates so much. And I think that's where the jaggedness or lack thereof, bluntly, I don't think New Mexico wants to deal with an up and down type game. They would prefer it's more half court so that his size and that offensive rebound impact can be so significant. Where San Diego State, I'm sure, I mean, the win, Miles Bird, was the critical factor. His tips, the amount of times he touches the ball on defense, particularly on help and jumping passing lanes, ignited his offense. I mean, his words after that game, when he was asked about putting in a team high 21, the first thing he brought up was his steals, his blocks, and his tips. And he said at the time, I've been trying to tell your local media that bleeds right into my offense. My offense comes from that defensive side, igniting it. And I think you're exactly right, because that's where rebounding is probably the central constant for both sides, that if one team wins it, particularly in convincing fashion, it's just going to domino into everything else that respective team does well.
Yeah, that's well said, and absolutely could be the difference tonight for one of these teams between winning and losing. It's not every day. What I find amazing about San Diego State, New Mexico this year, John, and John Sadak is with us. He'll be on the call tonight on CBS Sports Network. What I find amazing is San Diego does not produce a ton of Division I men's basketball players. There have been some great players out of San Diego County, but it's not rich in talent like maybe San Diego County area football would be, for example. But now you look at this New Mexico team where Eric Olin spent 20 years at UCSD, took him from Division II to Division I. He then brings Luke Hopps with him, who played at a non-D1 at Point Loma and is playing his final college year for the Lobos. Jake Hull is a true freshman out of Carlsbad High School, playing for New Mexico as well. Isn't this game just littered with San Diego storylines, which is just entirely unique when it comes to men's college basketball?
Very much so. I was having that exact conversation with my partner, Dan Dickow, when we were coming back from the shoot-arounds today, and asked him his general impressions of San Diego high school basketball. And he confirmed pretty much what you're saying, that's his perspective of that of national recruiters is that you can dismiss at times some of the gaudy numbers that come out because it's hard to judge it based upon level of competition. And, Jake Hall was set to be bound to UCSD with Eric, before he wound up changing jobs. And then with that, that school allegiance changed for Hall as well. But clearly he has demonstrated against high level competition. He is an elite shooter. I mean, he is one of the best shooters in the country. One of the top scoring freshmen, period. And the 3-point shot is a critical part of what New Mexico does. They deny the 3-point shot incredibly well. They take a ton of threes and they shoot it at a very good clip. Not quite great, but they have a great single shooter that shoulders that load significantly. And it's a giant part of the interconnectedness, particularly in college basketball, of that style is a big deal. I mean, that's something that New Mexico shoot came up as just a concept of playing against San Diego State, that complementary basketball is so necessary. And you have these, San Diegans that I'm sure San Diego State has been a long-time power, that there's some kind of connectivity to that, right? It means something. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, anywhere in the world, when you're in something that's related to competition, and that competition now has on the other side something that's tied to home, something that's tied to your family, your background, whether that's something you feel close to or the opposite, no matter what, the sport is so fueled by emotion. It's a huge part of the story in this game.
It really is. And by the way, they had another San Diegan that was supposed to be a huge part of their team. He's just been out. Chris Howell, who played at Torrey Pines High School, but he's been out and played last year for UC San Diego. John, before you go, I know you got a busy one with 2 games coming up. Just give us the 30,000-foot view of Utah State and Nevada, what's playing out in the background. The Cincinnati job comes open. Jared Calhoun has been a successful 2-year head coach at Utah State. They're in the midst of this incredible year. How do you see this first semifinal shaping up?
Similar to what the second one is, the home team took each game the first time, and
Right.
defense ultimately won the day in each of those games. It was a decided run for Nevada at the close. Utah State also missed some shots that it would normally make during the Wolfpack win that happened in Reno, and Utah State forced turnovers from a Nevada team that doesn't give it away. Fewest turnovers in the Mountain West. I think Corey Camper Jr.'s ability to cut off ball, the motion style going back to the Bobby Knight Indiana days against that tactile shuffling zone that has a lot of deception from Utah State. In similar fashion to San Diego State, Utah State can hum offensively like nobody in the Mountain West, but it starts on the defensive end. It's those live ball turnovers that result in transition and run that are a huge part of it. And I think the defensive side and the jagged nature of it. I mean, we saw foul fest yesterday throughout the day, particularly in the San Diego State game and also in the Nevada game, where they set a single game Mountain West tournament record for free throws made. So I think that other element could have an even bigger impact in that game. How is it whistled? Nevada doesn't take many threes. They probably have to be plus at the line to beat Utah State, but that's part of what they do.
John, love your perspective and the insight. Looking forward to seeing you tonight out here in Vegas. And for our listeners, if you're watching on television, John Sadak on the call for this massive doubleheader in the Mountain West late night here in Sin City. Appreciate it, my friend, and I'll see you later on tonight at the Thomas and Mack.
You got it. Thank you, John.
All right, great stuff there from Jon Sadak, again, on the call tonight for San Diego State and New Mexico. By the way, Brent, I'm going to take you behind the scenes for a second as I'm in Vegas in my hotel, right? We just replayed that interview. So I told you, I'm going to lie down for a second. Or I don't know. I said I'd be back in 5 minutes because we're replaying an interview. I lied down on my bed. I nearly passed out 3 times. So imagine that. I just was sleeping on my bed while the show was going on. It came close. It came very close to happening. I feel like I've got a renewed lease on the day. I feel good after my 5-second nap.
I was pushing the wrong button. I was talking to your ear, not over the air. What you're going to have to do is, when you're in college and you might do a beer bong, you need to do a Celsius bong.
Dude, and I've tried to lay low on the Celsius. I really have. For the last 4 weeks, I've had one a week where I was having one a day. But the second I'm off air, I think I have to run downstairs and get one because they have them in the lobby. And it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, I'm already on my second Coke Zero since 3 o'clock, and
exactly.
I'll probably have at least 2 more.
It's gonna be a long night. I gotta get ready. It's this is the calm before the storm. This is the lull, and I need to get myself ready here over the next couple of hours. All right, Team USA about to take the field against Canada in a must-win game in the quarterfinals of the World Baseball Classic. Plus, if you missed our Padres insider earlier today, Kevin Acee with an update on a potential sale in terms of a timeline, as well as an update on the health of Joe Musgrove and the latest on Xander Bogaerts as he gets ready for year 4 in a Padres uniform. We are here until 6 p.m. Aztecs basketball at 9 with pregame coverage at 8. This is San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app. All right, San Diego Sports 760 wants to congratulate our winners of $5,000 in iHeartRadio's Thank a Teacher, powered by Donors Choose. And now Donors Choose will match up to $150,000 in listener donations. Go to iHeartRadio.com/teacher and enter the code Thank a Teacher, and they will match any donation up to $200. Help us say thank you to the educators shaping our future now at iHeartRadio.com/teachers. Also, a reminder, SDFC on the road tomorrow. They'll take on FC Dallas. Coverage beginning at 5 p.m. on your home for SDFC. San Diego Sports 760. SDFC undefeated in Major League Soccer 3-0. And also, again, having their way right now in the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. Speaking of international events, the U.S. has struck first against Canada as the, I guess, visiting team. I mean, they're playing this in the States, but they are batting first. But they lead 1-0. To the bottom of the first inning. So 1-0 U.S. if you've been keeping your eye on the WBC. And again, the Dominican, I think, is going to beat Korea. It's 7-0 right now. Dominican leading in the fifth inning. So that Dominican team with Tatis and Machado in good shape. And maybe somewhere along the line, they're going to meet up with that U.S. team. And that'll be intriguing if that happens at some point next week. Now, again, Kevin Acee, if you missed him, he will join us at 5:30 in about 10 or so minutes. And there's a lot to get into. Kevin had the interesting point that he was making that he's actually going to go to, are the semifinals in Miami? I think they are. But he's going to be there if the Dominican advances, and they're just, again, a few innings away from advancing in this tournament to the semifinals. And I do think it's an interesting story for San Diego sports fans, what Tatis and Machado are doing right now. So I think that'll be good coverage for our listeners and again, for readers of Kevin in the Union Tribune as well, with that tournament going on. So, yeah, Kevin, if you missed it earlier, again, you're going to hear from Kevin coming up at 5:30. And again, we told you Aztec basketball tonight at 9 with pregame coverage beginning at 8 p.m. So, again, I think this weekend, you look at what's in store for us this weekend. I think a lot of, our listeners are probably going to be paying attention to the Aztecs tonight, specifically against New Mexico. I'm sure some of our listeners will be watching the WBC this weekend as well, with Team US taking on Canada. And for me, I've always loved, specifically this time of year, you're getting close to baseball, but you also have the basketball, the NCAA tournament with March Madness and Selection Sunday. And that's you grow up with something, and it's still, honestly, for me, I'm not saying it feels identical, but there are similarities. I think there's a general level of anticipation for Selection Sunday. What's the bracket going to look like? Who's going where? When are the games being played? Who's broadcasting them? I need to fill out a bracket. All those things that we've gone through for a million years. To me, and someone correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if you disagree, 70470 started with the word team. To me, it's the second biggest sporting event in the country to the Super Bowl. Now, I know they're different. I know they're different events. One of them plays out over days. The other plays out, obviously, over a 3.5 hour window. But I think in terms of an American spectacle, I think March Madness is right there. Again, I'm not saying it's the Super Bowl, but I think it's right there in second place to something like the Super Bowl. There's other, marquee events. And then there's things that aren't conducted every single year, like, World Cup or something like that. But in terms of something that's every year and is Americana and something that's very unique to just being a sports fan, I think March Madness would finish second to the Super Bowl for a lot of Americans. Maybe there's something. Am I missing something, Brent, other than the Super Bowl, March Madness in terms of a sport event, Daytona 500 or
no, because that's not even close either.
Yeah, I don't think so. And you can't say I can't say the NBA playoffs or Major League Baseball. That's, I guess you could if you wanted to, because March Madness again isn't a singular event. It's but to me it kind of is. It just encapsulates everything. So I think a lot of people would probably agree with that.
Yeah, because the NBA Finals is totally dependent on who's in it. If you had those years where it was, Steph versus LeBron, you would get monster ratings. But, when you had the year when it's Giannis versus Chris Paul, you didn't get the same ratings and stuff. And nothing can touch the Super Bowl.
No, of course not.
I'm trying to Daytona is not a good one because I don't think anyone outside of the U.S. cares about the Daytona 500. There's you go to Europe, they got F1 and stuff. I don't think they're really concerned about the all left turn racing league.
But that's the same with March Madness. It's a very American event.
Yeah, but I think March Madness, you can have people that they'll get into it just for like the gambling or doing their office like bracket and everything like that. So I think more people will get involved in that. You know, nobody's doing a Daytona 500 pool, at least not out here for, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, I think March Madness is probably second because, like I said, just it has a similar element with the Super Bowl to where, like I said, Super Bowl, you'll get people that they didn't watch a single second of the NFL all year. They're going to go to the Super Bowl party and they're going to watch the Super Bowl and they're going to play squares and all that other stuff. Just like this.
Yeah. And to your point, where else in like sport can you get people like glued to their television for like Miami, Ohio against Purdue? You know what I mean? Like, it's not happening. Like, that's not happening. There's not everyone's racing their TV if that's a college football game. You're not going there for college baseball. But like that Cinderella intrigue, that survive and advance, you know, again, it's not best of 7 like most professional sports or a lot of sports. It's just kind of singularly unique.
Well, we always bring it up. It helps though with March Madness because they actually like underdogs and embrace underdogs, and they promote the underdog, and you know they try to get you to somewhat root for the underdog, opposed to if it was like you said college football would spend half the broadcast telling you how X team didn't deserve to be here anyways because they're not Florida or somebody like that. And, see, this just shows that, they should have been here anyways. And, they don't do that. If Mount St. Mary's or somebody makes it to the Elite Eight and they lose, no one's going to go, see, they didn't deserve to be here anyways because they lost. So, see, and just punch down on them for no reason like they would in college football.
Yeah, it has everything that people like. Like, people like an underdog story for whatever reason they don't in college football. And I get it, it's hard in football. There's way more student athletes, there's way more players. But by and large, people like an underdog, whether it's a boxing fight or an international sporting event like David versus Goliath, like Lake Placid. Do you believe in miracles? And people like the idea of a 15 upsetting a 2. They don't need to see it every game. And they don't need to see a 15 play a 15 in the national championship. But people do they like UMBC over Virginia. They like the story of Chaminade over Virginia. That's just, it's unique. And it's something that, again, we have in college basketball that we don't necessarily have in professional sports or in college football. And it brings a lot of people to their TVs, certainly over a 3-week stretch. All right. On the other side, Kevin Acee, back to the Padres. We will turn our attention to the Padres. Kevin Acee, our Padres insider, on Joe Musgrove's health, on a timeline for Padres ownership in terms of a switch potentially, and on what comes next for Xander Bogaerts as he gets ready for year 4 in a San Diego Padres uniform, getting you ready for Aztecs basketball tonight at 9 p.m. with pregame coverage at 8. But you're going to hear from Kevin Acee on the other side. This is San Diego Sports 760. We are live on the iHeartRadio app.